Hello everyone and welcome to State of the Realm. We're back, we've broken out of the Omega Prison, but really, have we? Because we're going to talk about it here, and it's just going to feel like we're right back in. So let's just jump right into it. I'm one of your hosts, Mr. Happy. Of course, joining me is Sly, who was never encapsulated by the Omega Prison, only from the outside. Sly, how are you doing?
I'm great.
I'm sure you are. You can't see him yet, but he's thumbs upping in joy of not being locked behind the bars that are the Omega Prison.
Well, maybe one day I will in the future.
Let me know when, Sly. We've got data center travel now. We've got data center travel now. I'm ready to go back in right now, Sly. Let's go. No, don't. It's a lie.
No, you're not. No.
All right. And, well, you know, while Sly and I, you know, we're here, we're whatever, you know, we're here, we're always here.
Yeah.
We wanted to bring on some guests, people with a lot of experience with the Omega Protocol, so we managed to grab a couple of members from Neverland. It was one of the first groups to clear the encounter. And so we have Mugi Wugi, say hello for the people.
Hello, guys. Hello.
Hello, and you're gonna love Mugi's image on the screen. I can assure you, everyone's gonna love that in a second. And we have Narrlocke there. Dark Knight, you played, right? I remember your perspective, but not the job.
That's me.
That's you.
I'm Dark Knight, and sometimes healer, and sometimes in between caster.
That's a lot of different things. Well,
Collecting
thank you
them.
both of you for banana. We were having a discussion about this in pre-show. I thought it was a pickle, but no, apparently it's a banana dressed as Straw Hat Luffy. To which you said you at some point owned that banana, that exact banana.
Yes. My friend made it for me, and he gave it to me as a present, and I kept it for about a month until it all got rotten, and I threw it out.
It took a month to get rotten. That's pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, I just kept it. It was rotten already, but I just kept it. You know, I didn't want to throw it out. And eventually I'm just like, I have to throw it out.
I was going to say, my bananas go bad in like a week.
I just kept it on the sentimental value, but I had to throw it out actually.
The sentimental value of the banana.
When it became more of a shape of a puddle than a banana.
Hey, you know what, though? I mean, it's Luffy. I guess you could probably melt into something resembling a puddle if you really wanted to. Could have made banana bread.
Don't start talking to Suki about Luffy. He'll go on all day.
That's fine. I mean, we basically,
favorite.
like I said in the pre-show, we have like Shonen Jump, an issue of Shonen Jump in the bottom half of the screen right now with both of you. Sly, come on. Why are you shaking your head no?
I don't want to talk shit about One Piece.
Yeah, please
I'm
don't.
not gonna do it. I'm not.
Don't you dare.
I'm not. I'm gonna leave it alone.
I'm on your
today.
team. I've never seen it. That means my opinion is easily swayed. Please tell me. Sly.
You're trying to break up now. You're trying to have him break up Neverland just so you're informed.
Just off of One Piece. Yeah.
Well, thank you again for taking time. Really appreciate you guys taking the time out. First time guests, both of you on the show. So really looking forward to having your perspective.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, it's great. I always feel bad asking, but you know, it's you know, as long as people want to join and have fun. Yeah, Sly hates it that I feel that way. I hate bugging people to like be on the show.
And you are such a people person. It's so weird.
I'm not, though. You think that. I'm not. I'm an introvert to the maximum, Sly. I do this out of necessity. The sun's scary. I want to go outside and see people.
It stings my skin.
My blinds are closed and everything. Well, before we get to talking about our main topic, the Omega Protocol, we just have a quick sponsor thing. You know, we got to thank our sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. They don't have to, they simply choose to, and we love them for it. So thank you. We're hoping for a solid 2023. We do have a lot of stuff happening this year between fan fests and raid tiers and, you know, even just what's right in front of us right now with that of Ultimate. So hopefully it'll be a fun 2023. Also, thank you to Steel Series for sponsoring as well. Always have the discount code and Advanced GG with the 10% discount code. So Mastered customer service. Yes, that is actually pretty accurate. Streaming is a lot like being customer service, except you can actually tell the occasional customer that you hate them and just ban them.
Yeah.
It's really customer service in retail's like dream scenario of just finally being able to say something. All right. So we're talking about this.
Yes, we are. But
What am I here for?
yeah, like, what were you talking about? What was it? Jeez,
The Omega
off
Prison.
the tip of my tongue.
The Omega Protocol, but I call it the Omega Prison.
The Omega Prison.
Yes, it's still the abbreviation is still the same, but it's far more accurate to the nature of what ended up occurring.
Oh yeah. So before we get right into it, I want to start off with like the preparation stages for all of you, pretty much. Like, how did y'all go into getting ready for top?
That's a
I
very
think
precarious
Suki's
question.
mostly in charge of that.
Yeah, so I usually handle like the raid prepping before we actually get into it, but everyone has their own thing, you know, life-wise, what they gotta set up. So like for raid prep, we had a few days before it. We just do whatever we want to do in game, and we'd have a lot of time to like, theorize what's gonna happen. Like we watched Mr. Happy's video on potential mechanics that he put out before it came out. It was like a fun, to theorize. It was very fun to just like think about what can be happening, and also the first mechanic they showed what it could be. So there was like a lot of like practicing with that as well, mentally and stuff like that.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, but otherwise we just we did DSR, just old ultimates, nothing really special this time around like we did before DSR. We did much more special stuff, but this time around it's just regular raiding. Hey, go ahead,
Narr, you said you wanted to talk about it?
Yoshi messed up, man. He showed us too much of the first mechanic.
Yeah.
We saw that there was 2 blaster hits and 2 towers, and there was a number 1, which implied there was going to be a number 2, 3, and 4. So we successfully predicted the entire first mechanic, and we practiced full RNG because we didn't know what the RNG was going to be. It ended up being full RNG in the game. So our first pull, we went in. The whole time we were just screaming, "We practiced this! We practiced this!" And we one-shot the mechanic.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's actually
was hype.
impressive how much a part of the preparation phase of trying to predict mechanics, though the few seconds that we ever get from Yoshi P is actually way more crucial than I think people understand it is. More so in this case, I think.
He gave away enough information that we literally one-shot the tower and tether mechanic. So take that as you will.
Yeah, I think we got the prediction correct in our group, but we had never actually practiced to the capacity that you appear to have, and that's what nails you. The super early kills, in particular, is being able to jump ahead in situations like that. I'll definitely be looking forward to hearing about the later phases when we get to that, because there's, yeah, I'm sure you're ready to.
And Haps, what about you? What about your group? How did y'all prepare?
We did a lot of low item level stuff.
That's what
I saw it spread like wildfire through like Twitch streams and everything. And it's like at first we were kind of just, I think a few groups were doing it, and as more groups saw other groups doing it, everyone was using it as a great reason to go back and do, because a lot of people doing Omega now with top weren't people who were either around for Stormblood or just never did it. Maybe they weren't even raiding at the time. So to the mass interest in the low item level Omega raids was actually awesome. It was one of the few times where I've seen so many groups kind of publicly prep in kind of the same way. And that was a big part for us. We did a little DSR. We did like a day or two of it, just like re-warming up a little bit. Didn't even re-kill it. Like we just had never done it all together as a team. But we spent more time focusing on doing the Omega raids. And just another big thing, and we're actually going to talk about this on next week's show, which we've already penned in. A lot of it was actually setting guidelines for mental and physical health. We actually had full written out in Discord pinned mandatory requirements for people to make sure that they were healthy throughout the whole thing ahead of time.
Yeah, that stuff's important.
Good.
Yeah, we did not do any of that. We just let everyone handle whatever they want to do. Just do whatever you want to do. Just be there. Don't.
That's more so because everyone in our group is really used to doing that kind of thing. So everyone kind of knows what they need for themselves. So we don't really have to tell them how to do it, right? But health is still important. If you feel like shit, you play like shit. Or as Sepp told me during Dragon Song, if you eat a burger, you're going to play like a burger.
No, I actually respect that exact statement from Zepp because I remember at one point during our raid week, somebody said they were ordering pasta on our lunch break, and I said, "That's not a good decision." Pasta's like one of the worst things you could possibly make a meal out of during downtime.
If you want to stay awake after.
Yeah, you're gonna be out cold. All those low carb was supposed to be in our rules, but I guess it didn't matter after 7, 8, 9 days, where people just needed something that they could afford.
I wish I played like a bowl of pasta.
What does a bowl of pasta play like?
What does a burger play like?
Very wiggly.
I think he meant the pasta, not the burger, Sly. Burger is
Burger makes you slow. Pasta makes you fast. Too fast. Unpredictable. Unpredictable means I can't get your tether.
Yeah, those things are spaghetti strands sometimes. You ever try to grab a spaghetti strand with your hand?
Dude, I can't even grab it with my utensils when I'm trying to actually make spaghetti. I'm trying to pull one noodle out of the pot and check it. It's like a 2-minute process.
It's like it's already cooked way more than it's supposed to. Yeah. Oh, I just ate before this, and now everyone's hungry. So.
Strong feelings about spaghetti. I'm sorry.
I'm Italian. I understand.
I'm just thinking about Super Bowl food. Anyway, one thing I want to go back to is, you were talking about predicting the fight, and for weeks we had conversations about how much of Omega this going to entail, and we now have our answer. What were your predictions like going into top?
When he said it was all Omega Yoshi said it's all Omega, so I immediately thought there's not gonna be Kefka, there's not gonna be X-Death, all these guys are not gonna be there. I thought they're gonna pull mechanics from those fights, and Omega's gonna use something from Kefka, but nothing. There's nothing from those fights. I think maybe enumeration towers, and that's it. That's in every fight.
I think that we expected there wasn't gonna be X-Death or Kefka as a boss that you hit. I think we were expecting them to show up in a trio and use a cool move and then fuck right off, right? But none of that even ended up happening. Instead, we got 5 bosses all named Omega down the enemy list at the same time.
It's especially funny in Phase 5 where you look at the aggro list and it just says Omega 11 times.
Omega, Omega, Omega M, Omega M, Omega M, Rocket Fist, Omega.
So Yoshi P made that exact statement. It's all Omega, but there were a couple of different translations for it we spoke about on the show prior, where it was everything is Omega, do all of Omega Savage, and the other was it's all Omega. And so depending on how you read into those, it either meant every single boss was going to be somewhat present, a statement we learned not to trust when they made something similar in T. They said that, they pulled as much as possible from all of the raids as they could, and that it wasn't even remotely true.
I want to come to the defense of them for a second. I struggle to find anything that they didn't put in Dragon Song.
Oh, they didn't say it about Dragon Song. They did not make any
but they did.
about.
But they did. Everything was in Dragon Song.
Yeah. Dragon Song, I think most would say, they never really told us how much of those bosses would be in DSR. They just made DSR. But T, there's a lot of things missing that I think people were expecting. I think most notably is height.
I can't believe they didn't put it in.
Yeah, that was, and also even just the robot intermissions from BJCC. All of the brute justice mechanics are technically there with Link Up. But I think a lot of people were surprised to not see the robot race that happens when he splits apart in any capacity.
Yeah, it's it's free real estate. It's a whole trio right there. Brute Justice comes down, he splits apart, and all the robots start rocketing all over the place, shooting missiles. Like,
What if they were there during Limit Cut?
that was the fight where they invented trios.
Yeah, it really
They
was.
didn't even put it in.
Yeah. But so when they said that about T, they said, we used as much as we possibly could. Here it was a little bit more ambiguous, but I think what they ended up landing on is the best possible result, in my opinion, because in my opinion, it's the first Ultimate where I'm told it's Omega Ultimate and it's actually Omega Ultimate. Like, he is the boss from beginning to end with no in between. It really makes him feel like the super boss that he kind of is in the franchise, in my opinion.
No, I think that's a nice thing. But I think Yoshi also said you should do all the Omega fights. That's prep. But those are useless, right? Just you got to do 011, 012, and that's pretty much it. I feel like.
Yeah, they didn't use anything from before that. So
interesting why you would say do all the fights, in my opinion.
He did say do all of Omega Savage, and if you did 011 and 012, that's all of them.
I guess, yeah. Interpret it that way.
Yeah, that's the thing. It really did come down to full on just interpretation. By the way, I found out why my mic is so low. It did grab it and lower the volume. It did do that. So now I'm gonna sound way too loud, most likely. So I'll make some adjustments for that. It lowered so on my Windows, I normally have it set to 61 for my volume balance, and it was set to 27, which as much as I love that number, not what I wanted at the moment. So thank you, Windows.
Quite a difference.
Yep. Thank you, Windows, and thank you, Discord, for that one. I will keep that on the side. But yeah, I'll do all Omega. I loved it. And also, the only mechanics that really weren't present, which we'll get to when we talk about the phases, I didn't really miss. I think there's a few we could probably name that we maybe expected to see. Limit Cut in MNF was probably one that I think a lot of people expected. And maybe more giant fists. Like, there's a couple things.
I thought for sure the big rocket fists in normal mode that just shoot through the room like dive bombs, I thought for sure those are going to be everywhere because they love dive bombs, and those fists they can just stick them anywhere, and it makes sense, right? I thought those were going to be everywhere.
I thought it'd be a big healing phase with the red fist as well, like it was in all of NS, but red fist never showed up either. So these fists, I feel like they were underused.
Would you say that you missed them, though? Like that you actually like height levels of how is this not here?
I was hoping for a healing phase like all of NS red fist. I thought that would be really cool, just like everything is chaotic, everyone has to stack up properly. Because back then you just tank all beat it, right? And you just kind of ignored that mechanic.
Yep.
I was hoping they'd force you to do it, force you to heal through it, but just that was kind of a letdown to me as a healer.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't use the big dive bomb fists, but I also think it's more impressive that they made a whole fight without the get out of jail free mechanic fist. Like it's better designed for it not being included.
Get out of jail for what makes it get out of jail free?
It's a fist that it could just spawn. That's what Omega does. He just summons fists.
Yeah.
And that could happen at any point in the fight, and it would make sense, like thematically, right?
Yeah.
Like he just synthesizes a fist, and they could have just stuck dive bomb fists in every mechanic if they wanted to. And they love making mechanics based around dive bombs, but they didn't have any of those in this entire fight.
Well, the eye is technically a dive bomb, right?
I was actually just about to say that. Yeah.
Shit.
It's only one though. It's only one dive bomb. Happens a couple times. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, really impressed. I in my opinion, with what they achieved here from start to finish mechanically.
It's a great fight. I completely agree.
Okay.
I don't want to look at it
now,
for a while, but
how would you compare the I guess cinematic nature of it? Because going from DSR, which is like really, really, I guess, cinematic in terms of its stages, and you go from here to there and then back, and then, to Dragon King Thornton. Whereas this one was pretty set from beginning to end.
I actually like this more than DSR. I think there was too much story involved in DSR that kind of took you out of the fight itself, like playing the game, and you're just watching what's happening around you, like the eye phase. You're not really looking at the mechanics, kind of look around, like who's outside the arena, like who's fighting and stuff like that. And this one, I like the straightforward. You're fighting a boss, you versus the boss, and I like that much more.
I guess I don't really have a strong opinion on it, but I've seen a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people say how much they don't like the aesthetic of the fight. I think that's because it's so like consistent from start to end. There's only like one theme throughout, whereas most ultimates usually, it's like changing bosses all the time. So there's at least one part everyone thinks is cool. This is kind of like just when it's the same boss in the same room, basically from start to end. I've seen a lot of people say they dislike it.
See, I found that while it was less cinematic in a direct sense of things like the details, like when you travel through time in DSR, you see different people fighting in the back. Like when you're doing Double Dragon, you get to see Hoshfont back there instead because he's alive in that timeline. So like, yeah, little details like that are nice. But in terms of raw cinematic, this realistically, this fight makes complete sense in the story. Like you could convince me this is how it happened, right? Whereas with DSR, it kind of, like you said, it kind of pulls you out. It's like telling you, but what if? And then it rewinds. And it's like the minstrel is actively like marionetting everything the entire time. Whereas this, it feels like he's actually taken what happened and actually reimagined it in a way that's still cinematic and lore accurate to a capacity. So even though it's not, I guess, as chat has just put it, visually progressive, it's in every way a more, in my opinion, cinematic in the way that it's telling its story in not so divided pieces. And there's lots of little details hidden throughout that support just the character of Omega. It's very intriguing for the character of Omega. So I actually thought it was an improvement over DSR. For me, it was less about how many arena changes there were versus just how good the use of the arena and assets was in the first place.
Oh. Yeah, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna complain about something that was barely related. You're good.
No, go. No. We want to hear it. We want to hear it.
I just heard arena, and I kept thinking about how much I hated the floor in Omega.
You don't like Among Us?
I hate when the golden phase starts, the part 5 with the trios. The floor gets like much brighter, and it hurts my eyes, kind of.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Have it a stigmatism, a visual stigmatism.
Kinda. It's like there's so many little bright, thin lines like going in all kinds of directions. It like gives me that thing where you're looking at like a pattern, and your eyes kind of start focusing on different parts of it, and then you're just all messed up. You know,
that's
what
why
I'm saying?
chat says, is that why you have sunglasses on? The Koku sunglasses.
Yeah. The floor's too bright. I don't like it.
I never thought that. It's interesting that you.
Yeah,
had that
I
experience.
struggled pretty hard with that, with looking at the colors of the hands during the first mechanic, because I had trouble picking out the colors on the against the floor.
Sly's looking at me like, you want to talk about that? Because I'm big color blind. For me, it's not like it's hard to look at because it's too bright. It's I couldn't see the AoEs. You're talking about the actual AoEs of the fist, not the backs.
Those
of
like the colors of the well, I guess both. I just have trouble seeing stuff on the floor in general against that floor. I don't know.
No, I could barely see, like when you do the fist correctly, it puts a little AoE on the ground. That was very hard to see. I struggled with that. Somebody had to point it out to me that it was even there. So I was like, "Hey, Happy, can you see that?" And I'm like, "See what?" I don't know what I'm supposed to be seeing. They pointed it out. I'm like, "Oh no, I can't. That's not good."
Oh no,
that's not good at all.
I pull out my magnifying glass and watch the enemy list real quick. Is it casting yet?
Unironically, kind of what I did. Unironically, because I couldn't see seeing the word explosion in the enemy list was my tell. So not wrong.
And real quick before we get into it, one thing going back to progression, I guess visual progression or anything. This fight really didn't, and we're going to be comparing this a lot to DSR. This fight wasn't as, I would say mechanically dependent. Like there's a mechanic that happens early on in the fight, and it affects the future of the fight.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't like loop through this or anything like that. Anything ridiculous like that. So how did y'all feel about, a straightforward fight versus something that was, mechanically dependent and in certain phases where they would, affect the future of the fight?
This is gonna come back to blue screen.
I was just thinking it. We have one brain cell. Yeah. Yeah, I think other ultimates really tainted us because I kept thinking the first phase was going to be a door boss. I kept thinking that blue screen was more than it was. And then I started worrying about phase 5 because phase 5 is the only place where that does actually happen. But it's not like, it's nothing like,
It's really obvious.
Yeah, it's like as soon as you get through the entire, even if you were to do it wrong the whole way through but survive, you'd come to the correct conclusion upon completing it a single time. But you'll probably make that conclusion before you even get to that point, so it makes sense.
It's funny you mentioned the door boss because before Prague we had like this dumb arguments in our teams like this is a door boss, it's not a door boss, it's a door boss. Like Zepp was so convinced of door boss because the music was so wasn't like the correct old Levinus music, it was the just theme music for Delta Megascape. So he was so convinced that this is a door boss, this is a door boss. I was not convinced. I'm just like, there's no way they put another door boss again. And it ended up not being a door boss. But yeah, those are funny arguments before Prague.
This is a funny argument during Prague for us. It was like, this is a door boss. In my case, it was most people going like, oh yeah, definitely. And
I did not believe they would put another door boss again. I thought this was a one-time thing, just for story. I think again for DSR was more story. I think the door boss in DSR was just story focused.
I like when you can activate the secret checkpoint after blue screen. That's my favorite mechanic.
Oh man, yeah. I will say this: there was nobody asking for the second checkpoint. I felt. I mean, there was no first checkpoint, but with DSR, after the first checkpoint, every time somebody got a new phase, at least from what I could witness from what other people are doing, it was checkpoint.
Happened with us too every time. Checkpoint, please.
Yeah, this I never felt like. One of my overall feelings about this fight is it feels shorter than it is. It's the longest ultimate, like by not that too big of a margin, but even with the cutscene and everything, it is the longest one.
I felt that way too. It didn't feel that long.
How long is it?
19 minutes.
19 minutes.
It's about, it depends on how quick you pushed in DSR, but I know my first clear of DSR was 18 minutes, 48 seconds. My first clear of this was 19 minutes, 1 second.
Oh, this fight's that long?
Yeah, exactly.
Our first we have the slowest clear. No, we're at 1910, I think. We're actually
That's because we had some real aggressive DPS holding.
Oh, so did we, but it's like, yeah, in other words, you can stretch it another, 10 seconds upwards. Yeah. I suppose. But yeah, it is the longest ultimate. And I don't know how long the transition into phase 6 is versus something like the Alexander transformation. I think they're about the same amount of time. Maybe this one's a little longer.
This one's like 55 seconds.
Yeah, I think that
or
one
53.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think the other one's 45 or something. So it might be a little, but that's just a few seconds. T is also the second shortest ultimate. So, but technically, looking at initial clear times, not. You can't look at UCOB and Uwu now and judge them the same as they were back then.
I think my theory on why you might feel that way is I think it's because the fight is faster. Like there's always something happening, so you don't have as many little mini cutscenes where you're standing there for 8 seconds thinking about how much time it's been. You just go, hit the gas, blue screen.
Yep, pretty much. Blue screen is literally the fight starts now. Like once you're at that prog point, that's okay. Then now we can start the fight. And it's painful to think. And that's 9 minutes. That's like 9.5 minutes in when you clear blue screen.
Yeah, so you don't have time flies because you're just gaming your mind out.
Constant DPS, can't stop thinking about damage to the balls, doing mechanics the whole time.
Yeah. I was grateful for that by the end of everything. Very grateful for it. All right.
Oh, we had some issues with getting tired.
You had issues with getting like? Did you mean it was hard to get tired?
This fight was really hard. We had to. What day was it, Suki, that we made our pull timer longer?
Like the third day, I think, where we changed from 5 seconds to 16 seconds, just to have that little mini break in between pulls.
We had to change our pull timer to be longer just for mental stamina reasons, not even for an actual reason.
That's fair.
I was the dancer stuck with a 10-second pull countdown the whole time. I wouldn't have minded another 5-6 seconds.
Oh no. I was just letting y'all go. I mean, I love hearing about the little things in between pulls, and like I really didn't even think about. That's something I really didn't think about until you said it. Just increasing your pull timer just so you can just have a little bit of a breather in between. Because normally I like to think that, you know, if it's something, you know, if it's some bullshit that you just wiped to, that you've already wiped to, you're like, okay, let's just go in and get the pull ready. But like if it's something new, that's like a few minutes of conversation or whatnot, just to kind of talk and see like, well, what is it? Or do we just need to go back and just see it again and just pull?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I guess I can only speak for myself, but like, if I make a mistake and like wipe or something, I'm going to be thinking about that for a few seconds, like going through my mind, like, why did I make that stupid mistake? Right. And when we were just wall down face pulling still, we would have a lot of wipes to the very first tower because people are still thinking about why they died.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Having 10 seconds to just like think about it, you know, helps a lot. Way less speed of wipes.
Speaking of phase 1, we should probably start talking about the fight itself at this point.
Yeah, and I was gonna bring us to that. So yeah, we're 30 minutes in and we haven't even like really started talking about the fight. So yeah, phase 1. We kind of talked about it earlier, but like you said, Yoshi P kind of spoiled you a little bit. Just a tad bit in terms of details.
Yeah, I was shocked. I don't know about you guys, but so a big difference with this compared to previous Ultimates is the built-in debuff timer. Being able to see everyone's debuffs, their timers, all the information you could need. And yet in the first phase, they still went out of their way to mark people with numbers for like easy recognition, designations, and everything in both mechanics.
Yeah, it's hard to see those little tiny numbers. So I really appreciate those big numbers they give us. That's a great addition to this game. I think they added like nowadays recently. I don't think like T had those, but nowadays these numbers are really nice. Big fan of them. And I hope they continue using them like for the rest of whatever.
We actually had a big conversation about that right before Prague.
Yeah.
I forget what it was. I think Suki said something or something.
Yeah, I had a misconception of what those numbers meant, and then like Narr clarified what those numbers. I thought the numbers meant you're gonna get hit by something no matter what. Like in this, numbers meant like you have to take the first tower, the second tower, third tower, whatever. I just thought the numbers meant the boss is gonna hit you with something that you can't avoid. But I like knowing that the numbers are just there to help you know who has what.
Yeah, it goes a really long way. And it also gave me something to yell at my team whenever they were losing focus in the first phase. It's like because we were calling by tethers for the first mechanic and then by spreads for the second. So I'd be like, 3, 4, just yelling every single number that I could at them. And if they weren't there, then I would have just had to say, next. That's not good enough. I want to yell numbers at people. I do wonder, actually, I want to pause you guys a question because chat said, I'm pretty sure the fight was designed before the decision to implement the timers in the party list. Do you think this is a result of that?
That is exactly what I was about to say.
Okay.
That was literally the words right out of my mouth. I don't even have to say that anymore.
So you do think that, yeah.
Possibly, but even if they had the plans, I don't think the party numbers help here at all. Like, it's really hard to see those tiny numbers on the fly when you're doing the mechanics. So even if they did add this after already deciding the party numbers, it would still make sense to me because party numbers did not help at all, I think, here. Like party timers.
It's a lot of information.
There's actually so many different timers happening at the same time that are all like 3 seconds apart. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I I really appreciate. I loved this. This is, I think, the best first phase they've made, and I am putting it against both Knights and Thornton, I suppose, with DSR, because those are both first phases, I suppose.
But what about second first phase?
I hate how correct you are. I hate it.
I agree. I think this is a great first phase. Just it really gets you into the what all of the fights going to be. I think no like breaks. Just constant doing something.
What would be your second place of the other ultimates for a first phase? And yes, you can use both of the first
Living
phases.
Liquid.
I was all right. We're on the same page.
Yeah. Oh, Living Liquid is sick. Let's go.
Yeah, until the crits kill the doll, but I'll take that over.
Skill issue.
Yeah.
These towers actually reminded me of dolls a lot. How many times people died to towers and dolls as well? And probably just felt like this is like the same thing again.
If it's like the first hour, then you're excused on your crit killing your doll. But after the first hour, you should have an idea of how much damage your crit does. And if your crit could kill it, then start your combo over. Like a good boy.
Yep, that was the time. I did that on Black Mage and one shot it. So
You better start hitting Scathe, boy.
I know. Well, I was at full and I forgot what I did, but I pressed Xenoglossy at one point and I was like, that was a mistake. Direct crit.
Did you have dance partner?
I don't remember. I don't think we had a dancer.
I could definitely see if you're a black mage with a card and dance partner and you press Xenoglossy and it direct hit crits. That could probably one shot it.
Yeah, it was scary. I never pressed it again. Never pressed it again after that point. Like that is an error in judgment right there. But this first phase, I mean, there's not much to say about it mechanically. It's one of the easiest to understand first phases, despite being very well put together. I'd say at least. It's
very. I could say that about this whole fight. Actually, that's something that I mentioned before. Is that, or I think a lot of us actually said this during Prague. Is this fight is designed very differently from like every other fight in this game.
Yeah,
it's like how do I don't know how to phrase it.
It's all like straightforward.
It's all straightforward,
except for Hello Near Far.
It's all like straightforward, simple mechanics. Well, up until like the trio phase, but I'm talking like before that because we said this before we got there.
Okay.
Once you're in the trio phase, you're back to like standard Final Fantasy fights, where like only some people get targeted with some things, and there's only like certain RNGs that can happen and stuff like that. But everything before that, it's full send on the RNG. There's no logic to anything, and it's all like relatively simple mechanics that you just have to do it fast, right?
Yeah,
I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's strange because I think we're all used to kind of being puzzled by 14 mechanics more than anything else, and that just isn't kind of what happens here. I don't think, and like you said before trios, I don't think there's a mechanic that trips you up or even tries to. Even jumping ahead a little bit, our discussion all the way into phase 3, which I thought was going to be a disaster. You can take one screenshot of your debuffs and actually know the whole phase if you understand how each of the individual components work.
That's exactly what we did.
Yeah, it just works. And then you have to do it, which is a whole nother story, but that's the name of the game.
We were like, what's this new thing? It's blueberry flavored rot.
That's what I love that cereal. I love blueberries.
Blueberry rot.
Yeah.
I didn't realize rot had flavors.
Strawberry and blueberry rot. No, that
My rot's tasty.
All right. And
what was I saying?
Next up, we get into phase 2, and this is where we see male and female for the first time. So, how are we feeling about phase 2? And I think this is the realization. I think this is where people realize, you're not.
It's actually all Omega,
yeah. You're not getting a door.
What about you, Suki? You haven't said much.
I mean, I think phase 2 is actually one of my favorite phases. I love that first mechanic party synergy. There's so much going on, but it's very straightforward still. Like, it's very easy to make a mistake on the mechanic, but like, it's so easy to understand what's happening. And I thought that's like a really well-designed mechanic, something like that, where it's straightforward, but it's just easy to make a mistake if you're just a split second late on something, or your thinking is like 1 second behind. And yeah, that's one of my. I thought the second mechanic was kind of boring, but the first one was really well done.
I want to hear your guys' opinions on this. People have been asking me what I think the hardest mechanic in the whole fight is, and I think it's party synergy. How do you feel about that?
Oddly, if I were to disagree, it would be pretty close because the only reason I don't out the gate is because of the towers later. Which are, again, not any more complicated, but it's the same idea in that it borrows the PlayStation tethers and asks for very precise movements, and nobody can be wrong, so.
Are you talking about the either like middle of the tower or get to the wall towers?
Yeah,
are you talking about those
yeah,
towers?
those are the only. Well, yeah, because the only other towers are phase 1. So yeah, I'm talking about the phase 5 enumeration towers. Yeah, it's literally trio 2 in phase 5, or it is this. I do actually agree.
I don't think party synergy is hard. I think Delta and Sigma would be both harder. I think party synergy, like I said, is very straightforward. Because if you're split second slow, then you'll die. But if you're on point, you won't die to the mechanic ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see Sigma Trio being,
I
that's
think
pretty up there too.
I think Delta Trio is the hardest thing to look at and actually figure out what to do, I think, of all the mechanics.
Delta Trio is hard to learn.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. But actually executing it is not that bad at all, I think.
I forgot
Unless
what
you're the guy with the
did
monitor trying to get in the stack, then you're kind of monkey steering a little bit. But besides that, it's all pretty chill.
Yeah. I forgot what you guys did for Delta, because I've seen quite a few different shots. I've been watching Momo as he's been working on trying to finish up his clear, and they have a very interesting way of doing Delta.
Whenever I watch someone's stream, we like whenever we clear sometimes we like watch people's streams afterwards or whatever. But everyone I've seen doing that mechanic, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what they're doing with the tethers and the fists and stuff.
Yeah,
they're like making triangles and like and like they're going diagonally, like rotating. I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, I think I guess I'll get there when we get there. We'll stick to phase 2 for now. That's what I mean. It's like it's really easy to hop around because the whole fight it's phases. It's not bosses. Like it's not like we say, oh, it's Thornton 1 and Nidhogg 1 and I.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all gonna go back to the trios because everything shows up again.
Yeah. No, I mean I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I'm just saying like I'm getting on that tangent too because that's just so easy to get on that tangent with the way the fight is designed. It's one really big appreciation I have for phase 2? The optimization of everyone for 2 or 3 GCDs twice across the fight. Twice across the phase, I should say. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like how they did that too. Everyone has to prepare for those double hits.
It's man, that's I was about to start a whole other topic that I was about to go through the whole fight again, but it's really
the DPS
important
topic,
that you do those
assume.
things. Yeah, yeah. We'll save that for later then. But
I mean, I think it's pretty important because phase 1, I mean, we've already talked about that, and this is one of the most DPS strenuous phase 1s. Not that it's like difficult to get past it, but it's everything you do there sets the pace for where you'll have your cooldowns and how you have to DPS every other phase after.
The part 1 is like it's not a hard DPS check, but you still have to do it perfectly because the more you save on the beetle, the more you can use on MNF, and the more you use at the start of MNF, the more you can save at the end and bring to the next phase, and so on and so on.
Yeah,
like
I've always wanted a boss that's an alternate with just one health bar start to finish, but I think the way that because that would kind of make it harder DPS check. If someone dies at the start, it affects towards the end. I think the way they did it this time from 1 through 4, phase 1 through 4, is pretty much one boss health bar, where whatever you do in one phase will affect the next phase, will affect the next phase. It's like the perfect effect. I think this is the I guess the perfect compromise to one health bar the whole time for me.
Yeah, and it is still one boss as far as I'm concerned. It is one health bar.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
It's so important that whenever we had a situation where the beetle was like really high health for some reason, like somebody, I don't know, messed up or like, I don't know, bad crit RNG or whatever, right? Like we're at the end of the fight and he's like 5%, he's casting Atomic Ray. We would we eventually came to the agreement that nobody should spend anything extra. If we die, we die. Just hope for crits. Just stay greedy, because if you see the bosses high in part 1 and you're like, oh man, we got to catch up, I'm going to spend all my stuff, and then you kill them, and then you don't have any stuff for part 2, and then at the end of part 2 they're really high and you're like, man, I got to spend my stuff for part 3, and then you do the same thing like over and over, and then you just wipe at the end instead of at the start. So we always said
I heard the magic words from you, crit variance.
I don't know. There was a couple pulls where we had some really crazy stuff, but besides that, it was really consistent. We had like, I think maybe 3 or 4 pulls across our like 1,000 pulls where nobody like made a mistake and we just like enraged, but it wasn't that common.
Yeah, I mean, but did you see what happened to Arthur's?
No, what happened?
On a 2% wipe, he didn't crit the Hyosho. On the kill, he crit the Hyosho.
Let's go.
And man, it's just, I mean, that's a topic we've beaten to death on State of the Realm, but it's crazy to look at the 56k Hyosho versus the 122k Hyosho. And that's a bad feeling.
It wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the fact that the M and F phase is like 40 seconds of uptime, it feels like.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
I think it's closer to like, I mean, it's decent uptime, but like the start is 30 seconds and they're gone for half the time and they come back for like 20 seconds and then you do the last mechanic and you're killing them, right?
Yeah. We had something similar. Our ninja only crit 1 Hyosho on a 0.1% wipe or a 0.3% wipe, and then he crit 3 of them on our kill.
What are you saying, Sly?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about how do y'all feel about the actual downtime in not only just the phase, but in terms of the fight itself.
Much needed, I think, with how fast it goes. I appreciate the downtimes a lot.
So on one hand, I think most people agree that they're really tired of the boss going away every time there's like something happening and then coming back and doing nothing for 30 seconds and then going away, like basic trio stuff. So there are actually a lot of mechanics in this fight where the boss is actually still there while you're doing the mechanics, like all of part 1 and part 3 and some of part 2, right? Which I think is awesome. I really like that. And there's a DPS check at the same time. That's exactly what I wanted. But there are still mechanics where the boss trio jumps away, like Suki said.
Yeah, because I feel like in top downtime, it's not really, downtime. I mean, you're still doing stuff. You're just not hitting the boss. Like there's still like mechanics and stuff, and there's still stuff to work out, but it's not like other ultimates where it's just the boss going away and, cinematic transition and things like that. So I feel like you were well occupied even within the downtime.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Because realistically in phase 2, your only downtime is party synergy. And the downtime going from phase 2 into phase 3 is not significant by that much of a measure. And then from that point on, I mean, you just get some downtime in the trios, and then it just really depends on how you feel about the specific timings of them. Because what really sucks is when they do them relative to, I guess, important things on a per job basis. Like if I'm a bard, like DSR's downtime on Bard was god awful. It was the worst experience I've ever had. And a big reason as to why it was not a consideration for Omega Protocol before, doing it.
Yeah. I think it's pretty well known that Bard is a lot of headache for not a lot of benefit right now.
Hey, Nature's Min buff was pretty good, but Machinist got Dismantle and Dancers always had Improv and Curing Waltz, so still an easy choice. Also, the flexibility of your buff window, especially in phases 1 and 2. Oh, just being able to do a tech step and just wait 10 seconds and then throw it out at the start of phase 2. And it's just, I love things. I love being able to do that. There's so much that you can do. And same with Machinist. Machinist just goes when it wants to go. And that's all there is to it. So
hit the gas. Yeah, just jobs that can save for the next phase are actually huge in this fight.
Yeah, it's brutal. But party synergy, despite being downtime, as chat said, doesn't feel like downtime because of how strict the movement is.
Well,
So
the
fast.
reason why I think it's like the hardest mechanic, at least for me, is that you have so much information coming out all at the same time right at the start. You have to think about whether you're left or right, whether you're triangle or square or cross or circle, blades or staff, sword or shield, which direction the eyeball is in, and what kind of tether that you have. And you have to perceive all of that information in about 2.5 seconds, because it starts so fast that you don't have time to just sit there and look at everything one at a time. You have to look at it all at the start. Right.
No, I actually disagree. I think that mechanic, you should be looking at it one at a time. Just like start with your shape and side, and then do the M and F mechanic, and then find the eye, and then go to your spot. And if you try to do everything at once, I think you'll make more mistakes than you would if you just stop one step at a time.
I guess when I say everything at once, I mean like in a space of less than a couple seconds. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can only perceive things one at a time, like physically, but
I guess
it must be
to
all
help
in a row.
draw the comparison, when you get to Trio 2, which is the other mechanic I mentioned, you don't have to think about the towers or anything too much right away. You just get the shape and line up. You wait a few seconds, then you get the markers over your head so you know where to go. Then the towers show up and you can check the 2 spots to line. Like, you don't have to be able to tell where you're going to take your tower the second you get like a PlayStation marker. Whereas here, the second you get the PlayStation marker, you're already like just plotting the whole path of everything you need to do up to and through the end. So
Exactly.
yeah. So I know I
That's
totally get what you mean.
That's a classic Final Fantasy 14 mechanic, where you know a Final Fantasy 14 mechanic standard design is like there's this mechanic, you know, it has like a lot of debuffs and it works in a certain way, but like I'm the tank, I'm gonna have one of these 2 things I'm gonna do, and that guy's the DPS, he's gonna have one of these 2 other things he's gonna do. But the fact of this fight is just full send on RNG. Like,
There's a lot of copium with those tethers. Did you guys try to think if they were baited on specific people because of DSR?
No, not at all. Actually, for Sigma, I guess walking ahead, I thought they would be baited on, like the squares would always get nothing. One of the squares would get nothing the first time we saw it, but that doesn't. It's just all RNG. It's full RNG.
The shapes.
Yeah, for shapes for Sigma, let's get ahead.
I think by the time we got to Sigma, we were beaten upside the head enough to not be expecting things to be patterned at all.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think at that point, we were like, we don't plan for anything that we don't see, no matter what, because we wasted a lot of time making strats on mechanics that we saw once, and then they worked a completely different way.
That's kind of what happened to us with Pantocrator. We ended up doing what I'll call vanilla Pantocrator throughout all of Prague, in that we basically did the exact same positioning for Ultimate Pantocrator as Savage Pantocrator for the lasers at the end. I mean specifically. So, and I feel like we could have probably had a better strategy for that. I think the static positions
isn't that just what you do? I'm not sure I follow.
Well, so in the original, it's the nearest people bait the lasers, and then the tanks just do the tank busters. Here, it's the tanks are the furthest people bait the tank busters, and the other 6 lasers are all RNG amongst the non-tanks. So you can just set up static position. That's what most people are doing now. They just set up static positions and just get to a clock spot basically, and just make sure the tanks are stacked up with invulns, so there's tons of space.
Oh, I think we did the thing where the people with the beams are like switching in and out of the intercardinal or whatever. Yeah. I think that's what we did the whole time. And also, we didn't stack up our tanks either.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much the same. I think we eventually started doing it, but we never did static. We always just kept doing an east, west, south kind of laser spread.
Did people just stack up tanks immediately from the mechanic, or was it like later on? Because
it was pretty quick. People started doing it.
The way I say it is that you want to save tank invulns for something important later on to see more. Because like I don't want my we had a paladin initiate. I didn't want to use Hollow Ground unless like we're gonna die and want to see more mechanics. Mm-hmm. So I think for Prague, it's actually important not to have your tanks use invulns if it can be possible, just so you can see more stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Tank invulns are like you're clutching that shit close to your chest, like my precious. Yeah. I need this.
I think we started without invuln on. Well, the first time just getting through it, like, hey, we just want to see phase 2 more, invulning it. But After that, we went to not invulning it until we realized we weren't going to use invulns again until phase 5. After we used them in wherever, and then we went back to doing it. So, but yeah, having the invuln. Although with Twice Come Ruin, you might feel slightly, I guess, pushed away from even thinking of saving, because until you know whether or not something has Twice Come Ruin or Thrice Come Ruin or whatever, it loses a bit of its luster, which I kind of am glad. Tank invulns have been kind of disgusting for a long time. So
that's the big thing, though, is that it only has to accidentally work one time for you to get all the information.
It's true.
So it only has to work once. If you just rip it, if you save an invuln and rip it on the prog point every single time, eventually one of those times that tank is going to randomly survive with his hallowed ground still up, and you're going to see what happens next, right?
Yeah.
So very important. And then you'll know if the strat that you're learning now even works for the part after that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But
really,
yeah, you're
really
going to see
important.
a lot of tank invulning. I've seen a ton of tank invulning for that phase 1 stuff, and then not having it for, because some people use it in phase 2 just for the busters there. I mean, it's really the only other good place to use it for a while anyway. So, yeah.
I think the only reason that I guess the only reason that we use it specifically on the solar rays is because
You guys
on
use
the beetle,
everything on the Pantocrator, right?
on the beetle, if you use your 2-minute tank cooldown exactly 1 second after the 4th guided missile hits, it lasts for 4 out of the 5 hits of the beam, and if you hold your DPS until the very end, then it comes back up for the tether like 1 second before. So you can technically get it on both things, but it's kind of tight.
Yeah. Now, you talked about how you thought Party Synergy was one of the hardest. I'd also assume on the flip side that you find Limitless to be one of the easiest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure. Limitless is just kind of brain off mechanic.
The whole time we were progging it, and then the whole time we were progging the fades after that, and the fades after that, we were all looking at that mechanic with a magnifying glass, like, the secret must be here. We're clearly not doing this correctly. This is just a bunch of AoEs happening around us, and nothing. We don't have to do anything about it. This must be where the secret is.
I remember seeing a Discord message that was a screenshot of the Dynamis buff that comes from phase 5. And it was somebody saying, you're supposed to get this in phase 2. I was just like, what? It was coming from like, I don't know. It was just in a Discord because it was an in-game, like somebody had it on their buff and debuff list. So it was from someone who had seen it, because we were just getting to phase 5 around that time. And I was just hearing that it's like, this is supposed to be from phase 2. And I'm just like, where? Where? And then I started looking at Limitless like, what can we do? Maybe we have to cleave both M and F with the blade dances and the Bard LB to give them power.
We tried that. We tried that. Yeah. And we tried using Limit Break on the F while she was invuln.
Maybe it was just a frustrating experience for me. But I think we should talk about that when we get there, right?
Yeah,
the blue screen. There's so much about blue screen you can talk about. That mechanic.
It's all blue. Limitless discussion is actually blue screen discussion.
Yeah, Limitless is blue screen pretty much.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, because I mean, it's where's the puzzle? That's everyone just wants to figure out where the puzzle is.
What I will say about Limitless synergy is that it stands out like really badly. It's so strange.
It's just so weird. Well, how do the flares do so
the
little?
The flares do like not that much damage. The pile pitch mechanic like kind of just passively happens around you. The Bard LB mechanic kind of just like passively happens around you for the most part. Everything, it's just like a bunch of random AoEs that don't really fit together. It's really weird.
I will say
Bard LB was the most.
Yep.
So go ahead. I was gonna say the Bard LB was super weird to me. It's just like it's completely random. There's like 1 in 32 chance where you just get completely fucked by it because it goes right down the middle of the. And then you can't do anything about it. It's 1 in 32. Like it's like 30. Like yeah, it just happens. You're just like, all right, pull again. You can't really do anything about it. It happens so rarely, but that Bard LB was so weird to me.
I feel the same way. That's what I was gonna say. Just sometimes it just sucks, and most of the time it doesn't.
You better hope your tank's angles are good so you get that one little pixel strip down the left and right if he shoots down the center.
We started stacking up everyone, including the tanks, at the start, because even if it was the bad pattern, we could ensure that there was something that was open. That was like our only way of
Well, the
like,
thing
eliminating
the
it.
thing about stacking up is, if you think about it, no matter where you decide to stack up, there's always a chance that the bard spawns directly behind where you're stacking up. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
what can you really do about it? There's always the chance that the bard spawns directly behind you and you're shooting straight through the middle, no matter where you stand. So
It's toxic. So it's the most toxic thing about Limitless. But what's another fun little bit about Limitless is going back to the topic of DPS and how influential it is phase to phase. After you have dealt with Cosmo Memory and you're just at the point where you're finishing the boss health bar for the phase, it is the biggest valley in terms of like what the fight's asking you to do at any given time until the very end, ironically enough. But it is also just as stressful as doing an actual mechanic, because you're thinking about how fast is she dying? How many things can I save? You know, when do we need to
Yeah.
stop?
exactly.
I'm sure everyone had their own way of telling how low the boss is. Like I looked at the W in the word shower and see if we had a certain percent at this point, we're good. If we're not, then we're behind. I'm sure everyone had their own special way to see if they're behind or ahead or something like that.
Yeah. So it's weird to just have a health bar and a cast bar, even when you are beating it, to be like the main mechanic of Limitless. It's like the actual true mechanic of Limitless is how do I save gauge? And then you get to save it for phase 3, which the only real transition, I'd say it's the only like UCOB style transition, or I guess T style transition of any of the phases.
I was gonna say that.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's not very hard. It's just rough. It's baby raw flames.
No, we saw the debuffs and we instantly knew, oh, this is like rough flames, except nothing's happening at the same time. Okay. All right, mark the guys, please. All right.
But I do want to ask, how many people during any various pulls did just forget about the rings when they first got there? Like the first few times there.
First few times, several times. Happened to a lot of people. But people got used to it eventually.
I think we actually, after like maybe the 5th or 6th time doing that, I don't think we only wiped to it maybe 2 times after that for the entire rest of the prog. It's really simple.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird. It's because DSR doesn't have any fantastic transitions either. In fact, it's Nidhogg comes down, blasts you in the face, and it's really, I guess, the only transition until Dragon King, which does the repeated bleeds. That's it. I guess if you want to consider the rewind a transition, I guess. I don't know. I don't know where you stand on that.
It's arbitrary, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But then you go into phase 3, and while I don't think phase 3 is the hardest, it's one of my favorite uses of what the boss is iconic for in such a short period of time. Because they clearly knew the only things that people would think about a lot. Like they knew people would think about everything that happens in Final Omega, and that plays a part later. But the 2 most important things, they were like, here they are.
I like how he spawns and does Hello World and then basically just dies. He does the screen mechanic and then just dies.
I actually really like the Hello World mechanic. I love the dance. It's just, it's just one big dance, and everyone's like kind of switching partners just over and over again. And I just like seeing it played out is very fun. But it got boring after like the 10th time maybe, because there's not really anything extra happening. It's just the same dance over and over again. So it got boring eventually.
Red defamation, red defamation, red defamation.
That call, yeah.
I thought it was
Or in their case, blue defamation, blue defamation, blue defamation. On their clear, blue defamation. Yeah.
Defamations are blue. I thought it was kind of interesting how it's 4 cycles of the mechanic, but they made 3 of them exactly the same. I was kind of hoping they would have made it so each one was just slightly different, kind of like how the 4th one is slightly different from the first 3, where the green tether has to go to a different place to not get hit by the thing.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they did that for all 4 of them, because I think that would have made it. I think most people agree that the Hello World mechanic is actually like a lot easier than what people were expecting it to be.
Yeah.
Because it's just the same thing 3 times in a row, which is kind of strange. It stands out.
Well, one thing that tends to happen with giant debuff vomits is sometimes less is more and more is less. When you are given 4 or 5 debuffs at the same time and you understand what all of them do, the mechanics tend to solve themselves because
Exactly.
there's no other logical way to resolve these kinds of things, and then you just see it's a pattern and you do it several times back to back. So I expected it, but I still just love that they took this. This was for me the most clear understanding of what the most iconic mechanics are from this fight, and just saying like, here they are at the same time. Good luck.
I think they could have spiced it up with something as simple as, you know how on the very first set, the two people with the Christmas tether are also the ones with the blue DNA that make it so you have to gate by the defamation.
Mm-hmm.
They could have done the same thing where on the second set, one of the people with the blue tether also has that blue DNA, and the other one doesn't, and one person with a green tether has a second longer blue DNA. So now you have to have one blue guy and one green guy. And and that pattern could have changed for each set of tethers. And it would have made them all slightly, it's like still the same mechanic, but you would have had more like RNG involved, which would have fit with the rest of the fight, I think.
Yeah, but I also think with how brutal a lot of that stuff is in the rest of the fight, it's probably better that they didn't. That's like the pipe dream of like, man, how can I make this even harder? But also in the whole picture, if it was like that,
I don't know. I think a lot of people actually agree that Hello World's one of the easier parts of the whole fight.
Yeah, I agree. It's the hardest thing is remembering where defamation is.
Yeah.
And not
that's the only RNG.
Yep. Yeah. But I don't know. I love it. I love that encapsulates the whole phase, because it is at the end of the day also one giant uptime mechanic, mitt check, heal check. It's all condensed into this one big 90-second dance.
I love that it's a full uptime too. That actually forces you, because it's not an easy DPS check either, right?
Right.
P3. So being full uptime while doing all the mechanics really, like, I think if it was more complicated, then it couldn't be uptime, just because like there's just so much happening already. Like the fact that it's simple is important because you can keep uptime fully. And if you're starting to think too much about debuffs and stuff, then you won't meet the DPS check at that point.
Right.
So I actually appreciate that it's not that complicated. It's kind of simple, so everyone can just keep damaging the boss.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. That's how I feel about it too. And I mean, the whole phase is not like anything gets more complicated after that either. The monitors though were a big trip up going into the last part, because I think it was a gut check of how many people actually knew how they worked in 012, and then also a huge like space check,
I love the monitor mech. I think it's one of my favorite mechs in this whole fight, the way they did it.
Yeah.
Big fan of it.
Sly, how intimately aware, how much, I don't know how much research you did into the fight before the show, because I know.
Well, before the fight, like in general, I knew quite a bit about the fight before Top came out. Like just final like 012 Omega. Yeah. I knew a bit about it, and it was kind of good to see Monitor just come back in the way that it did, and I agreed. Like the way they utilized it was pretty unique. So like again, I dread the day I fucking do this, but why?
I genuinely think all the teams that did it first it's going to be like Uwu. Not entirely like Uwu, it's a lot harder than Uwu, but the teams that did it first are the ones that are going to have the roughest time. It is once it's unraveled, you kind of just it's how well can you read check kind of, I suppose. How well did you understand the guide? How well did you understand what the debuffs did? It's an information check that does not have an easy execution check like Uwu. So it's just a lot of the work being done matters more here, I think, personally.
Do you think so?
I think so. Because
go ahead.
I mean, I look at the mechanics, and again, we keep saying they're all easy to understand. And in a lot of encounters, like with DSR, I mean, how rough was Towers on Nidhogg, second phase, for so many people to both understand how it worked initially and to be able to keep the attention to execute it in the middle of dealing with that phase versus anything that's in top.
From a personal standpoint, I just don't like anything with, vomit on top of DPSing. like mechanic, like rot mechanic vomit and tether vomit on top of like, do damage. Like I just fucking hate it. It eventually gets done, but I fucking hate it.
Just be glad they're not binding you in place like in Rubicante as a Dragoon. It's like, oh, you like jumps? That's funny. Wow. That's fascinating.
I don't think they would ever do that in Ultimate.
If they do that in Ultimate, I'm going to be livid. And I don't even play Dragoon.
Would you bind people for like jumps and stuff?
You definitely wouldn't be getting stunned every time you get tank busted in Dragon Song. It's
not like the Knights
I love being
do
stunned when Thornton comes back. That's my favorite. What do you mean?
Yeah, that's oh boy, that's a time. Yeah, no, I hope they don't do that. No, I don't know. Genuinely, I think that the people doing it first are going to have the hardest time. I do think that you're going to see a lower success rate than DSR across a lot of groups until 6.5. I think the damage check being as real as it is going to make the gear set that comes from the dungeon in that patch more valued. I also think the pots in 6.4 and the food in 6.4 are going to have a significant uptick of success, especially with the first phase. That's going to be huge for just the first phase in general, which, as we said, cascades to every other one. But yeah, no, I don't think this is a fight to be afraid of. I think DSR is a fight to be afraid of. I don't think this one is, personally.
Eventually they'll do that shit too. But
yeah, no, be afraid of that one, Sly. But this one, I'm telling you, I think you'll be all right.
Yeah, but getting back to the fight. So any final thoughts about phase 3 before we hop into phase 4? Because I really want to get your takes on phase 4 when you first got to it, when it first happened.
Oh, right. There is one thing for phase 3, Sly. That fucking auto attack until they fixed it.
Oh yeah.
Fucking auto attack.
So, how did you guys handle it?
We actually covered one person, Bennied one person, I'm sorry, not LD'd, TBN'd one person, and Benison the same person, so they had max health coming out of the phase before. And then one person didn't do anything, that would be me, and then we just full healed as much as we could.
We had the problem too where our ninja would just get auto attacked, constantly, and then like I don't know if this is actually the way you're supposed to do it, but I'm just everyone go behind the boss as soon as the phase ends, because to auto attack needs to turn around first. So that during that turnaround animation, Narr can invoke the boss and make sure it auto attacks him, and we never had that problem again. So I think
we had the ninja stand at the wall behind the boss, and he got autoed without the boss even moving.
Really, we've never had someone get autoed behind the boss.
We never had that. Yeah, we were lucky that we had Snapringer Map Enjoyer, who knows how overworld mob aggro works. Because I think he said that right away, like stay far away and behind him. He's like an overworld mob.
Yeah, it's that auto bug. It's nice to see that it was a bug though.
I wonder how that went through QA and stuff, right? Like they were playtesting this.
We already know they're better than us after Abyssos, so why? It's the same thing. They just did it.
We were the boss would specifically wail on the ninja every single time. At first, I was like begging everyone, please don't hit him when he's targetable. Like, please just let me hit him first, please. And then there's some people like, Narrlocke, are you not doing the fastest thing you can for a little bit? And then we realized like, oh, wait a minute. The boss hit someone before the first person even queued their first GCD. So this is clearly a problem.
Yep.
And he would always hit the ninja. So what we did was I would go up underneath the boss in front of him, and I would have the other tank also do it with me, just in case, because he can live in auto. And everyone else would go to the wall all the way behind him. And so it's not that this stopped people from getting aggro, because a good 60% of the time, maybe, he would spawn, immediately whip around, run all the way to the wall, and then turn back to me. It's so funny because people would be so horrified every single time. Mostly me. I think I was the one. I was more scared of it, and I wasn't even the one who was dying to it. But especially the ninja. He hated our ninja. So sometimes we would start Hello World with the boss literally mashed all the way up against one of the walls, and the other side couldn't get melee uptime because he ran to the wall trying to hit someone at the start.
Yep, that all sounds familiar. And there's
What
nothing
an
worse than when
experience.
phase 3 is your prog point. You're so excited to be there again, and then and then even worse is the person tries to get up too quick, so they're off the they're like in that res animation where you can't get any debuffs from Hello World.
No, Hello World still gives debuffs.
No,
I
so
think
but
even
if you're in the if you're dead, it'll still give you debuffs. But if you res and you're like in that kind of limbo in between, it doesn't.
Did not know that. Interesting. Okay.
The same thing happens if you die during critical error. I think this something similar, or later the same thing happens. You can well, no, actually that's only if you're alive. So you just need to make sure you don't res until after critical error is cast. So yeah, it's motherfucker.
I don't think we ever had that happen to us where someone dodged the Hello World debuffs, thankfully.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was
Did
possible.
he dodge any other buffs while you were there?
No, actually, I think Suki said there was a couple times where he was like,
I noticed a card would apply to someone during that mech. I'm just like, maybe I just forgot I never gave him a card. So I didn't even think about the max debuff thing, max buff count. It's not something we ever thought about in our prog, funny enough. And actually, people were asking, theorizing why we switched from Dancer to Machinist was because of that, because the debuff stuff. We just switched it because more damage.
Yeah.
yeah. I've noticed that the main thing that issue comes from is Sage, mostly.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Sage specifically. Like, Dancer is like, they give themselves a lot of buffs, but Sage is the real issue there because Sage gives everyone a lot of buffs. Every single button that a Sage has is at least 2 buffs at the same time. So it's problematic right there.
Yeah, I wonder if and when they address it. I think it's worth addressing in some capacity. They used to have this issue with debuffs back in 2.0. They raised it to 60 in 2.1. So this is not a new issue. It's an old issue that's just coming back.
Very old issue.
It was an issue that people DRS have already.
Too, right? Yeah, DRS.
Yeah, and Eureka. Also, people actually abuse it in Eureka.
Yes,
because
they still haven't fixed it, so I don't know if they will even this time.
Yeah, you can use Sacrifice to red someone and it gives you Doom and kills you, right? But you can literally stand there and buff cap yourself and then red someone with Sacrifice and you won't get Doom because you're capped. Right?
Yep. I'm aware of that. DRS is the worst because people sometimes dodged reflects when you're supposed to be reflecting for the mechanics. And that's not good.
That, yeah.
It's very not good. Oh man,
I've definitely dodged my Riddle of Fire a few times.
Yeah, that's no bueno.
So this brings us into phase 4. It was funny seeing pretty much teams get the phase 4 immediately and see the wave cannon AoEs. And see them handle it for the first time. And I mean, after that, from a visual standpoint, let's just outside looking in, this appears to be one of the, I don't want to say simpler phases, but when it gets broken down, it appears so on the outside looking in. Maybe I'm wrong. How would y'all feel about this phase?
I mean, you just spread then stack then spread then stack then spread then stack and then hit the boss the whole time. So that's all it is.
Yeah.
And the hard part is the stacks might be on the same group and you have to kind of adjust.
Mm-hmm.
And the in and out ring, you have to walk in, walk out, walk in. Those are the two parts that probably killed most people. Otherwise, other than that, it's very simple. Yeah.
It's just a choke check.
Yeah, it is a choke check. Yeah, just as long as you know what you're doing, you're fine.
It's actually my favorite phase. Collectively, I mean, it's really not a phase. Like everyone got into calling it a phase, but it's not. It's a I
call it a transition too.
It's like eyes. It's like eyes, but shorter in a sense. It's like barely even a phase all in of itself. Truth be told, that animation. So for those who don't know, the spread animation is the Tank Buster animation from the original fight. It's when he does the one where it targets one of the 2 tanks, then blasts them in the face with the giant laser. This is that 8 times. One of my favorite sound effects, and it's just this huge bassy hit that's just it's like heavy. Like it's just weighing down on you. And I love the franticness of this spread stack because it is. It's not like a super generous spread stack. It's not a super strict one either, but it's just so fast and frantic, all while that boss health bar is just tanking the whole time. I love it. I love the way this phase feels to do.
And now I know both of you said you feel like it's a transition more than anything. Was this kind of your even though not really zoning out, but just zoning out and kind of prepping for phase 5, was this kind of like where you could, just, was it free, quote unquote?
Oh, personally, no, not really. But because there's a plenty long cutscene right after that to zone out. So
okay.
I think this transition you're gonna be zoned in and do as much damage as possible.
Yeah. That was the don't choke check. I was full focus trying not to choke. And then when you kill him, you get like a good 12 seconds or something to just like sit there and think and do nothing. So it's chill after that.
Okay.
It's chill for me on Dancer. Because I had the partner change going into phase 4, save a standard at the end of the previous phase, then save a standard at the end of this one to partner check again to somebody else. And if I don't do the partner check and the standard step within the first like 2 seconds, then I potentially lose a standard at that phase. So like I have to go pretty much the whole time. So
yeah.
Not as chill for me. It never was
Couldn't
chill.
be me.
But what's hilarious though is not any of the things that it actually wants you to do. It's what everyone thought it wanted you to do. Or tried to figure out what it was.
Oh, here we go. All right, Zaki, do you have the checklist
for blue screen?
Yep.
I don't have the checklist, but there was a lot of tinfoil being thrown around. Like, what can this be? What is this?
Did you ever land on it's called blue screen and the tank is blue on the party list, so it must be a tank
dude, Zep always says stuff like that when this happens. He's the biggest tinfoiler of all of us, I think.
Honestly, like when I saw blue screen, the first thing I thought was damage check immediately. I thought it was 49% because we died to like 60%. So I'm like, 49% is easy. We just put 49%.
Oh my!
We got 49%. It didn't phase. It just kept going.
MT was getting so pissed.
I was getting frustrated because I kept saying it's lower, 39%. I kept saying lower and lower and lower. No one believed me, and everyone just started
like, get him to 49%. Maybe it's just a DPS check, and then we would get there, and then Suki would be like, all right, maybe it's 39%. Let's get him to that, and then we would get there, and nothing happened. And Suki would be like, maybe it's 29%, and MT would be like, when does this end?
I didn't let up on the DPS check. I wish I pushed a little harder so we didn't waste so much time testing other stuff.
I was with you there the whole way.
Narr was the only one with me on damage check. I just I kept pushing for the next 10%. It worked, so like I was starting to lose confidence. But the whole time, I just wanted us to keep pushing damage.
I wasn't ready to rule it out until we at least saw what a good run looked like, right? And then we saw a good run could easily get below 19%. And I was like, well, let's at least try that, right? If it gets to the point where we're sitting here grinding out crits trying to get 9%, like that's not going to happen. It's not going below 19.
There was one pull, we got to 20%, and it was depressing because like if we just got that 1 extra percent, we would have found out right there that pull. But we did not, so we spent another, 1 or 2 lockouts just trying other things. We could have saved 4 hours trying random stuff if we just got that 19% that pull. That 1% I was so unlucky.
That's where I started seeing the things about there's something you got to do in phase 2 or okay. So we did have one major tinfoil theory. For that, I think the most common one was needing to bring enough debuffs in from phase 3. I think that was the one I saw the most public.
So
that's another thing we were doing.
So I want to real quick rewind when you were talking about things that you have to do earlier to set up for things later with regards to debuffs and things. I know a bunch of, I don't think I really was thinking about it a bunch, but I know a bunch of people were thinking about how it was so suspicious that the debugger immunities you get from Hello World have no timer on them. Just like the Garuda debuffs, right?
Yep.
So everyone's thinking maybe you have to bring these later somehow because they're permanent debuffs that don't go away and have no timer, right? And that was before we killed the blue screen. And when blue screen happens, it takes them all away. But we didn't know that, right? We thought they were permanent. So
yeah, because I think
that was a big tinfoil.
I think the way the game is programmed is they don't go away till final Omega is dead, but he doesn't actually die when you finish phase 3. He kind of like stops at 1 and then goes back to full when he does.
Developer confirmed not an extra phase. There you have it.
There you go. But yeah, I think ours was, so we noticed that he was falling apart, and we were like, oh, you have to hold DPS and push him so that he falls apart in the middle of the cast.
We tried that too. We tried getting.
We tried to do no damage. Yeah, we tried to do 0 damage, but then our dots stayed on from P3. If you put dots at the end of P3, it'll stay on P4. So we're like, okay, this can't be it. That'd be dumb if it was do 0 damage. It was an interesting thought too. Like, just do no damage.
Tried not doing any damage.
Well, so when we were seeing clips of people who were there before, we saw like around 70%, like his rings would fall off or something. Like, so we were like, oh, you have to break him when he starts casting it to interrupt it. Then you got, so it's a big damage like hold check instead. It's like a timed damage check.
I think we saw right away it wasn't damage based.
No, but that's what we saw.
I could definitely see how that would be something that you would do if you didn't notice that right away.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of those infinite blue debuff timers, I think there's a lot of things Square Enix did deliberately to throw you off on that mech. Infinite debuffs, and also the red debuff, the stack one. In O12S, it's only 2 person. If you had a third person there, it won't do anything to the third person. And this one, it actually affects 3 people. So it's like maybe they want you to do something with this. But I think they did do some deliberate changes just to throw you off. But I guess it wasn't enough, maybe.
Yeah, it's that's and then there was of course you have to bring the critical error bug into that phase to give it to him so he can't blue screen. And so
someone recommended that too. I shut that down instantly. There was no way.
I think we knew that wasn't, because if you get a overflow from critical error, it goes off at the exact same time as monitors, and there's just simply no way to survive that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, but I mean, that was blue screen.
I think the dumbest thing we tried was killing F while she was invincible. We thought maybe there was like you could just kill her anyways. That had to be the worst thing that we tried.
That was we were getting real desperate. I think what Raimi said was we were scraping the bottom of the barrel. Hold on, let me go get a new barrel because we're out of this one.
Oh my god.
The hardest part about all that tinfoiling about the blue screen was the fact that everything before that is so simple besides Hello World. Like, there's nothing you can mess with besides like trying really stupid shit on Limitless Synergy and then like messing with Hello World a little bit, but not really, because there's not much you can change, right?
Yeah.
So we were at the bottom of the barrel immediately, like right off the bat, we were really scraping.
No, I mean, I thought it was a deep piss the whole time because this phase reminded me of the first time we got to the transition, the Hoshman phase in DSR. Where like the first time we got there, a lot of people were like, this DPS check is impossible. We're missing something, right? Because hitting at 29%. The first time we got there, we got to like 69%. It was like, people were like, no, this is impossible. There's no way we'll ever make this check, but we're missing something. But it's just a DPS check there too, right? Mm-hmm. So this phase reminding me of that a lot. Just hit the boss. That's it. And you'll beat it. I feel like everyone should have learned from like stuff in DSR where everyone's like, this is an impossible check. Even Nidhogg, people are like, you have to maybe beat 3, otherwise it's impossible, right? But now you see people breezing through with these. I think it's just like a comfortable check, and think going forward is something people should consider
as well.
Yeah, I agree. I remember amongst the tinfoil hats was someone just saying it's probably not a 0% HP check. Nobody ever predicted what the percent would be, but they're like,
oh, for sure. Someone checked right away, and I think the conclusion was that the boss during blue screen has exactly enough health that you would need a full 2-minute opener, the same amount of DPS you do on the opener of the beetle, and he still has exactly enough HP to tank an LB3 as well after that to get him to 0. Mm-hmm. So you would have to end the previous phase with full opener and LB3, and we were like, it's not happening.
One or the other, because it's very viable to LB3 phase 3 and do 2s in phase 4, or the other.
You can't save both. It's too much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
Maybe.
you probably could if you're a cracked Giga gamer, you know.
4 and 6.5 with the extra 5 item
Unrealistic.
levels and the pots.
Yeah.
But not now.
Yeah, probably then,
True.
yeah.
Yeah. But after
So we knew
all that,
right
I'm sorry.
away it's not 0.
Yeah, 0 would have been insane. One time we forgot to LB3 and we got him to 21%. And we were like, man, why was that so ridiculous? And then someone went, I forgot to LB3. I was like, damn, we were gaming then. We're not enough.
Blasting.
But,
I don't think we ever had him that low. That would have been, I think, 12% after LB3. I don't think we ever got him lower than 14.
I think we
was
had
our
a,
lowest,
we had a
maybe.
13. Yeah, that I've never seen. I was shocked at how close we were to passing it when I realized we had not LB3'd at all. But yeah, something like 12 or 13% was
And
the
you're
lowest
blasting.
we ever saw with. Yeah,
Dancer diff.
dude, I had 100 gauge and 4 feathers as often as I could coming into a phase. Anytime I could, if the feathers were cooperating.
Did you guys split any twos, like decent twos, like, some people use twos on P3, some people P4?
No, we the only thing we did was if we were behind on F for whatever reason, we sent him Bolden. That was it on M and F in phase 2. That was the only time we ever split them. That was our we really need to make it. Let's just throw that out there.
I think our machinist was holding all his stuff, I think wildfired on P4 and stuff, so we had some desync there. But I think it was designed for people to desync their twos because of the timing of Delta and how all twos come up at that point again. So like resyncs automatically. So I think they probably designed it in a way that they're expecting people to desync twos. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Now we get to one of my favorite moments and my favorite phases in the fight, just from a viewer standpoint. Phase 5. Now, if anybody hasn't seen Happy's perspective when he first gets to phase 5, it's just, I kind of think of it as the duality of man, because it just goes from confusion to aha to confusion
to laughter,
and then sheer laughter after all that. Yeah, when you first get to phase 5, the damage that Delta version put out just
Kills.
Jesus Christ. What did y'all think when you first
Oh my
hit
god,
phase
I
5?
almost died to that.
We just died instantly to that. Our tanks are alive, fortunately, so we saw some of Delta.
I think it hit me
Everyone else
down to
died.
like 10% HP, and I was the tank. It almost killed me.
For a second, I'm like, this hits way too hard, but then I looked at the numbers and I'm like, okay, no, this is livable with mitigation.
Yeah, we lost everyone but the tanks. Pretty much. I think one of the melees might have lived, but either way, it wasn't pretty.
Riddle of Earth difference.
This phase, this is kind of what I mean by there's a lot of storytelling and lore and cinematics in just the first attack. The first attack, the player knows that if you were to take away all the asterisks and everything, that it would say run Dynamis Delta version. But Omega doesn't know that it's Dynamis, so he can't. It's not just going to spell it out because he doesn't know what it is. He's just like, what the heck is this thing? Just run whatever this is. And so I like that, the detail that it never outright says run Dynamis for any of his attacks, because he doesn't conceptually understand it enough to just run it as a program.
I felt kind of stupid. I didn't understand until someone told me that.
Yeah, I didn't understand at all what that meant. I just thought it was just like, bugging out. Like, it was another mechanic, another fight that had like the buggy text cast bars. I forgot which fight. Maybe it's a different.
It was MSQ, the whole end of the MSQ. They just sent the ASCII characters.
Yeah, I thought it was similar to that. I didn't think it was actually spelling Dynamis, which is interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to just be nonsense. But...
Yep, no, it's run Dynamis. Yep, and I love these trios so much. I love
them too.
They are,
Great
especially the first
really
one.
well.
Yeah. So, as you said, Sly, as soon as you die to run Dynamis, trios seeing them for the first time are generally the most fun, because it is everything being wrong immediately. And it looks like everything is supposed to happen at once when it's only all happening at once because it's wrong. That's
exactly. Okay, so once you get to Run Dynamis Delta version, this is the point in the fight where suddenly this mechanic, I think for this mechanic specifically, suddenly everything slows down to like a normal pace that you expect from a Final Fantasy fight. And that throws you off at this point, right? Because the whole fight before this point, you're so twitchy because everything requires you to react so fast and you want to move. And the very first mechanic that happens is you literally have to not move for like 7 seconds. And if you move, you instantly wipe. And we had a lot of wipes to that because, especially because with the strat we did, we would break our patch right away. So what would happen is we would look at our colors for the fist or whatever. We would stack up. We would stand there, and we would stand there, and we would stand there, and then a patch would blow up, and someone would be like, "All right, time to go," and run away, and then we wipe.
Yeah, that happened an unfortunate amount of times.
A lot, like, yeah, more than 10 times.
There either. I'm sure you had people not thinking about when the rotating fists would be baited as well, like the actual rotation disappearing versus when the orange appears, but it's like up to the second that the orange disappears that it can be baited. And we had some early movers to that too, myself included. It was
it only happened to us one time, the early moves for fist.
I have a question about fists that maybe you guys can help me with. We at one point had everyone in their groups had the opposite color fists, and we still had deaths. Were they distance also? Like they couldn't travel too far? I remember one time we did it. Everyone was on top of each other. Nobody moved, and we just never got circles under two of our players.
I think it's just we had a lot of discussion around that because we also had some times where we felt like they should have stacked, but they didn't. But I think in the end, after trying a bunch of things, the conclusion ended up being it's just really strict, I think.
I mean, I'd like to see a clip of what happened, but I think it's just if you are not on top of each other, it will consider you guys not stacked.
Yeah, it's really tight.
It's really strict on how close you can be. It's pretty much if you're not on top of each other, it will wipe you. It happened a few times where just a pixel apart. It's just like, all right, guess you're not on top of each other, you're dead.
Yeah, because our whole strategy actually ended up being based around that precedent when we thought. And I mean, our strategy worked out great for what we did. Basically, we just sent blues to beetle and greens to final, and we just, if we needed to do a swap for fists, then they just swapped within the groups.
Speaking of the fists, oh boy. Suki, remember when we were still planning for all RNG?
Yeah, initially we thought the fists were full RNG, and we were planning for every cursed pattern possible. And unfortunately, it didn't end up.
There's this one pattern that's really, really cursed.
It's like,
boy.
Thank goodness it wasn't real then.
Yeah, it was very, very, very appreciative of them not making it full RNG. I think there's the one part that's not full RNG. There's a pattern for these fists that make it work out nicely.
Yeah. Up until that point, everything in the fight was full RNG, so we were like planning around full RNG for everything still, right? But this pattern was so cursed that we literally just said, all right, we acknowledge that this could happen. We are electing to ignore it until it happens. Because this complicates the mechanics so much. It's better if we just instantly die to it and then figure it out than plan for it.
That's like people electing to ignore meteors in DSR. To just like, we don't care if it's the bad pattern, just north and south. If it's a bad pattern,
exactly. It's
either
the same
die
thing.
or deal with it. We don't care.
We are electing to ignore this because thinking about how to do this makes the easy part harder.
Yeah. It's weird how sometimes the play is to just not make a plan. Even if it's something that's, because at least with meteors, it was something that was possible. It wasn't something that was impossible.
I wish I could show you the drawings we made. I don't know if screen sharing
Did you guys
will
use
work
Miro?
on this thing.
Also, I learned about that. We had a whiteboard program called Miro where we could just drop all of our raid plans.
We used good old-fashioned paint and screen. Yeah, legit paint.
I used paint. I made a great paint drawing that I'll see if I can drop in Discord. And when I posted it, like it was during a 15-minute long discussion about like what we were going to do for what our plan was at the time. And I have to like open Discord on the side because I don't want to like minimize this or like go to the media screen or anything. But either way,
if I can find a good paint.
Yeah, it's actually I can just pull it up on the stream, and if you guys look at the stream, you can see it. But I posted it in Discord after I drew it, and the exact response I got was, "Yeah, basically like that, Happy." And it's the most ridiculous drawing that I've ever seen or done or anything at all.
This is a pretty good paint, actually. Whose paint was this? That's clean.
Yeah,
That's Suki's.
Oh God, hold on, I made it too large. Made it too large and in charge. Hold on, there we go.
Waiting for my 6 Twitch ads to finish so I can see what it looks like on your screen.
Oh, perfect. Well, if you can see what's on my screen, this was what I drew for Delta, actually, for what our original.
Jesus, what is happening?
That's a paint drawing.
Well, okay, you can see the laser. The laser is the blue on the left, and then there's the 6 rotating fists, and then there's the blue tethers and the green tethers. And that was what we were going to do. We were going to do 2 greens on each side, 2 blues on each side. We didn't do that. Then on the right, it's the baits for the fists and how they'll look. And then the red is final Omega. So one of those is his monitor, and then the other side is the other monitor. So then you can see the narrow line that's open. That's where the pile pitch would happen, plus the other blue. And then the greens are on either side of the monitors, and then they blow up, and then they get there. Yeah.
So something I really like about this mechanic, and I think this applies to most of like this fight, is just every mechanic can be done in different ways. Like when you look at DSR, every mechanic really is only done one way, right? Like there's only one solution to everything. But this one has like really unique solutions. Everyone can come up with their own way. Like I think the way we did Delta is completely different. I haven't seen another team do the way we did it at all. I actually really like the way we did it. And I just like, we cut the arena into 4 slices and we just set certain slices to each person. And, but like in your picture, you set them, you had like a thin slice for the stack, right?
Yeah, for the pile pitch. Yeah, we basically put it just to the left or right of whichever side that was safe from the final Omega monitor. And then the monitor person would just take another step. Basically.
Exactly. Like there's so many ways to use mechanics that I really appreciate. That I like when they do mechanics like that. There's multiple solutions, and you just pick the one your team likes, and you go with it.
I think so as well. Those are always my favorite mechanics. And that's one of the reasons why I really like the first 2 phases of T.
Yeah. Well, you'll be glad to know, and I learned this through the grapevine, that the JP PF Discord is using the strategy we used, and they, for a brief period, were calling it Mr. Happy Dynamis Delta. And I was like, no!
The Hap strikes again.
Not again! I think they changed the name.
Brambles?
I think they changed the name by request. I think it was just
Happy Brambles, Happy Fountain.
I thought a lot of the JP players, they call all the NA streamers Uncle Happy.
Yeah, it's
Uncle
Oji-san.
Zeno.
Because it's an honorific that can mean Mr. or Uncle. It's like very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Happy.
Oh, okay.
That's
That
why
makes sense.
for P3S they used our Fountain of Fire, which was actually Stahl's Fountain of Fire, but they called it Happy Oji-san Fountain of Fire. I had somebody think that Oji-san was a player in Japan. Like, oh, it's named after both players who made this strat. And I'm like, both players? That was Happy Oji-san. Yeah, Happy and Oji-san. I was like,
Yeah.
that's not what that means.
Well, okay. I've had a lot of strats that became the Zeno strat because Zeno was in my party, and whoever the biggest streamer in the party is automatically their strat. That's how it works.
Yeah.
God, Happy Brambles is the curse. You want to know what the worst part about Happy Brambles was for me, I think, in particular? At one point, we did spread positions around the boss, and we said, oh, we just stand in Happy Brambles spots. And I was like, fucking hate all of you right now.
No, is that a strategy that you're disowning? You're unhappy with?
It's a weak one. Do the other one with the big open spaces.
Happy.
Do the, what is it, box strat? Do box strat.
Unhappy Brambles.
These are unhappy Brambles. These are very unhappy.
I love that.
It's also funny. So for Trio 2, the pattern with the 6 towers looks like a smiley face. So somebody said, oh, that's Happy Strat. I was like, no. No.
People, that's something that is like one of my pet peeves is people not describing things as they are.
Yeah.
Like I've noticed being online as long as I have that. One thing people love to do is just invent nicknames and acronyms for things that don't need them. Like when every person calls a circle a chariot, my blood boils. It's a circle. Like this is gatekeeping.
So I just looked in Discord and I saw the diagram that you drew. Would you please direct your attention to the stream as to one I drew?
Oh god,
it may look
It's so
somewhat familiar.
It looks exactly the same. Wow, that's actually amazing.
Yep. That's I think a lot of people had the same idea with that one.
Everyone assumed it jumped 3 times, right? That's
Yes.
the initial. Everyone's initial drawings had 3 jumps.
So we noticed that the when it starts hopping, it actually has I think it has 14 seconds or something on the debuff briefly when it hops or something. I don't remember. But somebody thought it was going to hop 7 times, so we had to make diagrams for hopping 3 times and hopping 7 times.
Yeah, that's
7 times. That's amazing.
That's something that we lost some time to. We made a strat around it hopping 3 times, and then it ended up not being that at all, and we had to kind of change it.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you're trying to make it make sense for 8 people, but it doesn't make sense until you know there's 4 of them across the phase. Then the 2 hops.
Exactly. Yeah.
But by that point you already know it's only 2 hops. So if
As
anything,
soon as you
do
see
in
that it
reverse.
hops only twice,
Yeah.
you kind of that's just how the math adds up.
Yeah, you assume that it has to happen. You kind of just have to assume it happens 4 times almost immediately.
Yeah,
you know,
and
if
then
it
you
only
omega
happens 2 or
cast,
3,
and
yeah,
you see there's 2
true.
sets, and I see.
Yeah.
My eyes have opened.
Speaking of eyes opening, Trio, man, it's Trio 2 for Sigma. Weirdly enough, not very hard, but also the worst. I don't know. Heaven's Fall is that's a mechanic.
I was actually very disappointed when we failed towers after the amount of times we've done Heaven's Fall. It actually it just crushed my spirits whenever someone missed a tower, because we've done UCOP in our team probably close to 500 to 1,000 times throughout our since it came out, and
Probably
whenever I see someone in the wrong tower,
that.
it just crushed me completely. It's like you've been doing this and you've counted towers for as long as you've been playing this game, pretty much almost. And how do you mess this up here, right? It was very crushing.
I think it was more crushing for Happy, just seeing his just every time they got the towers and just somebody not even missing towers, just out of position, and just hearing the amount of, it wasn't even salt in his voice, it's just despair.
It's not
The
like
amount
I
of
was
despair in
perfect,
his-
but at the same time,
I
it
feel
was
you.
once I'd been through it a couple of times. Yeah, it was because when I'm not doing call outs for the group, and I didn't have to do call outs this time, which is rare. I only called out phase 1. It means that I can instead employ my other method of not fucking up, which is literally saying everything I'm about to do out loud. So when I get into this phase, I say triangle, circle, square, X, northmost, northwest, which is implying the northmost person in the northmost pair
And you
for
would
each
sing
set.
it.
Yeah, and then I would
You
sing
would
it
sing it.
too. Northmost, northwest, north. And then I'll be mid skip tower or long Heaven's Fall. So long meaning you just literally do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Whereas with mid glitch, it's more like 1, 2, 3, skip 4, 1, 2, 3, skip 4. But then I just started saying I'm clockwise 4 means I'm counterclockwise 2, or I'm counterclockwise 4, that means I'm clockwise 2. That's just it. So then I was just landing it every time. And so when I looked over and I saw 3 people in a tower, and I'm just like, that's 11 and a half minutes. Yeah. But I mean, it is what it is. That's a team game at the end of the day. It doesn't matter. Same thing. I thought Wormhole was super easy, but it doesn't matter how one person feels about it. Everyone's got to be on the same page.
Yeah, exactly.
And the tower check is a big case of that. But
Boy.
other than that,
when we were progging that mechanic, we had some real cursed solutions, let's say. And one of our ninth men ended up lifting a strat straight off of the balance of Discord that we ended up using.
Yeah, we were assuming it could be any orientation of the towers initially. We didn't know it was just 2. And we had this like when Narr came up with this weird thing where like we have 4 people always set towers, and the other 4 would look at their tower and then go 90 degrees or 135 degrees. Like there's no set spots.
We looked at the same chart. I think we looked at the same diagram.
I don't know if I could do the explanation justice without like a live paint feed, because I don't know if my words are good enough.
I think what he said was pretty close though to what I remember looking at, because our ninths pulled out a raid plan, and it had like there was like one setup where it was like the Nears were like west and south, but there was 2 of them, and then the other Nears there was like 2 people. It was like assuming that there could be a random number of 1 or 2 tower or like just a more or less finite amount of
Yeah.
Once we got to this point, we were burned by the Fist RNG plans and the Hello World plans from Delta that ended up not being possible. So when we got to this point, we were firmly on literally only plan for the exact thing that we saw train, which is good because we would have wasted a lot more time on that if we didn't. And we figured out that the towers are always going to be symmetrical relative to the male turning into the female, but we were basing it off of that the female at the edge. So that means we had 4 patterns instead of 2 that we were planning for, right? And so based on any of those 4 patterns, wherever the female was, we had R1 through R4 like normal, but instead of the L1 through L4 strat, those 4 people tethered to R1 through R4 would just look at where their partner is going. The R1 through R4 would go north clockwise, never duplicating towers. So if there was a 2 tower, they would skip it. And their partner would go 90 degrees or 135 degrees to them. If they have 2 choices on one pattern, the correct answer is clockwise, and on the other, it's counterclockwise.
Oh, that was cursed, honestly.
I'm
glad it did end up being like that.
Thank goodness. And then
the cursed part was that that strat involved a lot of people having 2 valid choices, and they just had to remember which one was the correct one.
It's actually, unfortunately, it's actually kind of easier than that.
Yeah, and then someone posted that one picture from the balance, and it's like,
Is right, yeah.
Turns out there's a kind of a benefit from being the stream team where you have 1,000 brains all looking at the same mechanic.
I remember, it's funny you mentioned that. In P1S, when we were trying to figure out chains, I read a chat message that said, "What if you made a box?" And I was like, oh, "That's the secret."
P1S chains?
I'm sorry. You know how like it does the hopping explosions in P1S where it's like nearest and farthest.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I remember reading someone in chat was like, "What if you just made 2 boxes?" And I was just like, and I put the markers down. And I was like, "Guys, do this," and they're like, "Got it, let's go." That was literally because I was streaming it and somebody just popped in and said that, and I was like, "That's it. That's the magic answer." And that, what do you know? Pull later. That was it. So sometimes being on the stream team and just getting one little bit of input that you didn't think is the answer to everything.
It has its own advantages for sure.
Okay, so going to Trio 2, the back end of Trio 2, there's not too much to say. The Dynamis hops take a little bit of getting used to space-wise, but fortunately, at that point...
I thought that was the hardest part.
Really? Okay, I'll say this. Getting people to not move before Blizzard happens is definitely the hardest part.
I'm the guy who's moving because I'm so fucking scared.
Don't move. Somebody moved.
Oh, man.
See, the second part is easy, but there's a lot of like small things you gotta keep track of. Like for example, like you can't move to the fist bait spot until the laser's done. We've had a couple pulls where someone just walked in too fast and the laser killed them. And that's a terrible way to go, right? Like you can see a laser coming at you, so why are you standing in the path?
I think that any mechanic where your positioning is dependent on another person's positioning, such as near and far world or like Nisis or something, I think those kinds of mechanics are inherently extremely difficult because people cannot control themselves.
People have a fear of standing on top of another player for literally anything, and in Trio 3 that can be a real problem. Oh boy. Oh, don't
near
Jack,
fars.
We don't need that. I have so many clips of me unrealistically surviving things in this encounter that there's a whole compilation of them on the way. There's one where, you know, at the transition of phase 3 where it's all the fists exploding just going into it. I literally standing in one, on-avanted into the other, and I snapshotted between the two of them and still survived. It's the dumbest
Let's go.
dumbest shit I've ever. I was trying to die, but not this time. I also did all phase 1 in first person. That was fun. Oh,
I love doing that in Coil. It's my favorite.
it was really weird trying to look at the Pantocrator AoEs, the baited ones, because I had to actually look down at my feet.
Yeah, because they're just flat little JPEGs on the floor. So if you're looking anywhere that's not directly down, you just can't see it.
Oh man. But yeah, no, the Blizzard was definitely the scariest thing. But the Dynamis hops, I mean, by the time you've gotten to this point, at the very least, the Dynamis hops they're not any more stressful than they were the first time, at the very least. So I think that helps a lot with them feeling less intimidating. But there's so many micro movements that kill you at that last part that's the only thing that's frustrating. Like you said, either being too early or...
Square is devious. They made a mechanic
there's
where...
been a lot of pulls, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They made a mechanic where 5 people have to simultaneously be the farthest point in the room from another different point in the room.
Yeah.
Devious.
Yeah. Now, one funny thing, and I want your opinion on this because we talked about the phase 3 auto, which is a bug. There's another auto after Trio 2 that has griefed many an individual, specifically whoever the main tank is, where if you take the final Dynamis hop, you will die to the auto that comes.
Can't comment. We never got it. Pridge.
Never got that. We had it and we fixed it, so we're pretty sure. We were like, oh, I don't think this is a bug. We just have to make sure the MT is never the final Dynamis hop, and this never happens. So it actually made it easier because it meant they were never the final. Like they just had a fixed position if they were one of the Dynamis hops. So it actually made it super easy.
I think it might also, you might also be able to get saved by server tick RNG potentially, because I've only seen a couple clips of that. It's not nearly as widespread as the other one was. And that one's still in the game, I think. So.
It is, yeah. They haven't adjusted that one.
Like you have to have like a really fast auto afterwards, and the MT still has to have the vuln. So I think it doesn't happen a lot of the time.
Yeah. So I just felt like we found a way that makes it never happen. That is not as stressful as trying to fix the P3 auto problem. So we just were like, oh, they just did that. Whatever. It makes it even.
Did they also fix that though, or is that still in the game?
They haven't fixed it. I don't even think so. We knew they were fixing the P3 auto because the 2 days before the patch on the forums, it went from like accepted to old, meaning they had already like done something with it. So we knew they were fixing the P3 auto before that maintenance even came out. But that, I think the P5 one is in there, and it's just nothing.
I'm sure it'll get fixed at some point, but it seems much less like critical because you can at least counterplay. I guess you could counterplay the P3 one also, but like
way worse.
In the loosest sense of the term.
Yeah. I mean, you could also, I guess, tank swap here if you really needed to, because you have 5 seconds before that auto comes out. So you could also just, provoke before the auto comes out if you really wanted to. But that could mess things up pretty bad, cooldown-wise, I'd assume.
I already have so many buttons to push. Like, every time the boss comes back during that phase, oh man, it's actually a struggle. I died once yesterday when we were, like, doing...
To Solar Ray?
To the Solar Ray, because one of my cooldowns was late because I forgot to pre-pop 3 of them before the boss becomes targetable because I'm also trying to do 2 minutes.
I completely feel you with Astro cards. I'm trying to dish out Astro cards while doing tank shields as well. It's just like, there's so much happening after each trio for like these jobs with the overloaded kits, I guess.
You want to hear the most toxic thing I've ever had to... Well, I wouldn't say I made them do it, but collectively we made them do it as a group. Nidhogg tethers in phase 2 in DSR, we used 2s on cooldown there, which meant the Dark Knight was using 2s on cooldown and mitigating without living dead during
at least so I actually did that right before prog. I learned to tank that fight. I never tanked it before. I guess I switched to tank like 2 weeks before we progged, and we did Dragon Song to just like warm up, but I remember doing that, and that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be, because during that, you have like a 20-second window before those tethers happen, or like nothing's really happening. You can just pre-pop your cooldowns. In this mechanic, it's like you're actually doing a mechanic that's like kind of stressful all the way up until 5 seconds before the tank buster comes out. So
And
it's
then
like-
well, yeah, at least you're not doing twos in trio right after trio 2. At the very least, that's not where you do twos. I don't think.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking more after the first one.
Yeah,
is
that
where
one's
it really
brutal.
sucks.
Did you guys break the
Because,
green tether? Did you guys break your green tether after the last Dynamis hop?
After, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
after.
Yeah, that's also another thing. If you're the main tank with the green tether, you just leave it on you let the other person do it at that point. You don't give a fuck. You're not trying to be a part of that.
Oh, I don't know. It breaks before the boss actually does anything. The boss specifically does nothing until that tether would have exploded. I think specifically to let that happen.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like you're already doing twos. Like you don't want to have to think about the 2-3 second of timer that's left on it. You know,
I think a lot of people were looking at the Vuln falling off, like trying to find the guy with the Vuln in the party list and looking at that. But I always just looked at my tether timer, and when it hits 2 seconds, you can just pop it. It's pretty brainless.
Yeah, that's what I did as well. As a dancer, I would always just zip to the other person. I'd just like stay still. It doesn't.
Of all the things that are overloading there, stepping forward and then backwards, I don't think is one of them for me personally.
It's probably for some though.
It's trying to remember to start pre-popping tank CDs while I'm also glaring at people wiggling around during Hello World.
I thought the white mage glared. I don't hear the crickets. That's weird. That's weird. Normally I hear the crickets, but they seem to be on vacation.
I can't help it. I'm a giggly person. I giggle at everything.
And then Trio 3 is probably so you talked about hating when people relate old mechanics to new mechanics.
Don't say it.
Predation.
Yeah, I
There it
hate
is.
that.
Yep.
Not enough. I don't actually like blame people for it or whatever, but I very quietly hate it.
It was very loud right there.
That's because he is provoking me.
That's true. Yeah, no, that was what we said. It's 2 times predation. 2 times predation into monitors. Trio 3 is kind of, it's weird because I think when you look at it against all the other ones, it is absolutely the one that is the biggest break in some sense. If that I don't know if
Very
that,
easy.
Yeah, but at the same time, those are some toxic ass predation dodges. Even if there are patterns to them, those suck. I hate them.
I was like, man, Suki really gigabrained on that mechanic.
I saw it pretty much after the first pull. I figured out like all the safe zones, and I'm just like, I'm gonna mark myself. You guys follow me the whole time. Don't think about the mechanic. Just damage the boss. And that's what we did the whole time. I just had a mark on my head, and we just followed the mark in the call.
The first few times he saw the mechanic, I was looking at that tiny little crooked ass sliver underneath his feet. And I'm like, how am I gonna? Like, it's such a weird angle. It like doesn't really line up with anything very well. I'm like, how am I ever gonna find this quickly? Like, it's so specific. And Suki's like, oh yeah, it's right on the cardinal.
Yeah,
Just stand in front of A, but like right up under him. I was like,
That is really
there's 3 spots. It's either directly in front of the marker, all the way in the boss hitbox, halfway between them, or away from it. Essentially,
Yeah,
like-
those 3 spots. Yeah.
I'm one of those people where. Never mind. That's a whole other conversation. I'll say that for later.
it's just the way that when you think about like what a safe spot actually is, you don't just think of it in like that. Like you actually look at the safe spot and judge what the safe spot itself actually is, and not.
It's kind of a difference where some people look at a mechanic like, you know, have you ever heard top down versus bottom up? Like,
Yes.
type of thing. Yeah. It's like Suki was looking at it as the kind of person who looks at it from top down, right? He's finding the safe spot and he's just remembering where the safe spots are. I'm like the kind of person who looks at it bottom up. I'm looking at the boss's AoEs and making the shapes in my head and then dodging those shapes like in a sequence, right?
Yeah.
So like this mechanic, like it really punishes my way of thinking of it because those are very like strange shapes that they're making.
Now, one thing I forgot if you guys did, but one thing I meant to bring up during Trio 2, but it's way more relevant for Trio 3. We did a lot of manual marking in our stuff. Like we manually marked the 3 people that would go north for like the fist baits and one of the Dynamis hops in Trio 2. And here we'd have one person mark all 4 players with 1 stack of Dynamis. We'd have one person mark 2 of the 2 players, but of course, if you're 2 with a 2, you need to be a monitor player. And then we had another player unmark 1 Dynamis players that also had the 1 marker. for the first Dynamis hops.
I seen that in some clear videos, and I was curious what was going on there. I think we did something completely different.
We made it easy. We just had our 9th man just call out the honor people. The rest just kind of spread.
Oh, you're
That's
talking about
smart.
Omega. I thought you were talking about Sigmas. My bad.
We're talking about
Yeah,
Mega
Alpha
Monitor,
now.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, during monitors.
Yeah, we the 9th man would completely ignore the AoE mechanic that we're doing for 15 seconds, and he would just look at the party list and just tell 2 people to go to the monitor.
What about all the
We were like,
Dynamis?
okay.
I mean, I'd assume you'd be directing people Dynamis wise, or did you guys just kind of?
We kinda just,
We just
body language.
YOLO'd it, the spread. We just the
Yeah,
other
we
6
actually
people YOLO'd it.
completely YOLO'd Omega.
It was never a problem. Yeah, like
We never. I think we only wiped 2 at once.
yeah.
That was because somebody called south and then went north. So
Been there before. It's like I am
But,
south. That's the wrong.
the 9th
south.
man would just tell the 2 people who needed to soak the monitor if they needed to, or he would pick a filler or whatever. They would go to the monitor. The far guy would go to the far spot. The close guy would go to the close spot, and then the other 4 people would just be like, "I'll be north far," and someone else would be like, "I'm south far," and the other 2 would just stand next to the near guy, and it was just basically YOLO.
That's definitely easier than having 2 healers mark 6 people and having one person unmark one person.
We're actually about to switch to me marking people during the
boy.
AoEs because we don't have our 9th man.
Yeah, your
anymore.
9th's not
So
showing up to
We have
weeklies
to do it
every
ourselves
week.
now, like actual
do it
gamers.
ourselves.
But that's actually not too hard, so
Yeah.
it'll be fine.
And then for what we did for the second part of Trio 3, where you have to, it's the 2 times the weirdly easy part. It's such a weird, like, just basic check that it's like, what the heck? What is this? Is something
It's
on the
just
outside of the arena about to kill me? Is this where the giant fish shows up?
It's just like it's just 2 hello worlds, and there's a mechanic that takes the 2 people who aren't doing it out. That's
Yep.
basically it.
Yep.
Very.
It's one
It's,
thing
like,
we can do it
weirdly
so many
slow.
different ways. I've seen like probably a dozen different ways people handle this mech, and everything works. You can just choose one and just make it work for your team. I love when they do stuff like that. Huge fan of this final part.
We did self-marking macros, so like the one where it just starts to mark you sequentially based on who's already marked by something. And then we just had the 4 people without anything just do that.
You did those on yourselves?
Yeah, so we like it's literally just /MK attack me, and it'll
Have
just
you
give
never-
you 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 depending on what's already out there.
Have you never had the issue where 2 people click it at the exact same time and one of them deletes the other?
Yeah, we just press it again.
Oh,
That's it.
okay. I guess. Yeah. Well, when you put it that way, I guess. I guess that's fine.
Yeah, it's the only place it was a problem is sometimes people would not realize they were the second hop, and they would press it, and then we'd have 5, and I'd be like,
I've never considered this.
yeah,
Just press it again.
yeah. We had something similar, not entirely in that way, for Wrath Flames, where we did a lot of marking for that. So
That one's way harder because there's stuff happening.
yeah. Have you seen the GIF of Layla Bell manually going through the
Yes.
party list?
Fiend, dude.
You know what?
I wish I
I
could-
will say one thing this made me want quality of life for. I've kind of run out of things to ask for quality of life that I feel are super important, but actually displaying a mark on the party list, like if you're marked with a 1 or a triangle or something, that was the thing I wanted out of this. Was
That
seeing,
seems like something they would do if enough people suggested it. They added that for the enemy list, I believe, like
Yep.
in Stormblood or something.
Yep. So that's my
Which
new
I don't-
quality of life ask.
I don't know anyone who asked for that, but they added it. I'm sure they would put it on the party list too.
Yeah. So that's my new
If
quality
there's
of life
space for
ask.
it in the UI, now that I think about it.
I think they're probably
hard to fit.
is.
Probably like over the job icon, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's actually very interesting that marking is a bigger thing now. I remember like in E, no one really marked anything. And like previous Ultimates, DSR started the marking thing, I think.
Dude, I
Everyone
wanted
just
to
wanted
do
to.
it back in the day for Uwu, but what other people wanted to do for Uwu, prior to what is considered the norm now, looking at you, Allegan Melons, I wanted to do that for my prog, but the way people wanted to determine the order was something completely different. This could have been a thing for so long.
I'm a big fan of the just saying your number in the voice.
Yep. Yeah. So
Or you can type it too.
I remember what had been found out at the time, that in the chat logs, when it's saying that the jail is being cast, 2 of them are from Titan and 1 of them's from Garuda. I don't know why, but one of the Titan jails in Uwu is cast from Garuda.
It's just like a programming thing. They just
Yeah.
use an already existing entity to do stuff, so they don't have to spawn more.
Yeah.
Save server load or something.
So we had the Garuda marked player be in one spot, and then one of the two Titan players would just call front, essentially. Like Garuda back, one person calls front, the other person just fills in. That's what I remember us doing.
I'm actually a pretty big fan of typing in party chat strats. This group, I've never had somebody do that before I joined this group, but it works out really well. Like whenever there's a mechanic like P8 or P4 where like the boss gives you a telegraph and then does like a bunch of mechanics and then executes it like a minute later and you're supposed to remember the whole time, like the Octaflare or Tetraflare. You just type it in the chat.
Yep. We had a bunch of people making macros just to echo their own mechanic even for some things. I know that.
I could easily see Ultima Jails. You just type your number in the chat so
I don't
that you
trust
can do the
motherfuckers
voice.
to dodge landslides at the same. Not. I don't trust motherfuckers. All right. To
I
type one,
guess it depends if you have gamers who can type things between GCDs, but
and dodge landslides. I ain't got that level of trust.
We do that stuff all the time, so I guess to me that sounds pretty good because then you don't need voice to do the voice strat. But
No, what you said makes sense. I think
fan of party chat.
I remember doing something similar. I remember we gave everyone a number marker in one of the groups that I did. Like you were 1 through 7, and as soon as you saw you were selected, you hit it, and then it was like least to most. Just like forward to
that
back.
works. So you just have to like remember which ones are 6, 7, and 8, but that works too. Self-marking, that's pretty good actually.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really innovative ways that people get around this stuff. It's just then people do Allagan melons, and let's be very clear here. It's going to be normal for this, unfortunately. Let's be honest about it up front. Anime music, Allagan melons, Alpha No's mom.
I hate it.
Whatever you want to call it, it's going to be norm in the PF for this.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like, Omega has so many mechanics with like so much random ordering of people. They're gonna use the hell out of that thing in PF come 6 months from now when nobody cares about it
It's
anymore.
already in there.
What's Allagan melon?
Right now,
You don't know Allagan melons?
Nope.
It is shorthand for what is the most common thing you see in UWU PFs in terms of something that somebody needs to bring?
Jail markers, auto jail marker, I guess.
Yes.
Is that okay?
They call it Allagan. They basically they take the A and the M and they come up with another name for it. So it's either Allagan melon.
I see. Okay.
they're
Or
like,
Alpha
"Aha,
No's mom."
I'm being so cute.
Yeah.
Ha, hee.
Okay, that makes sense now. Right?
Yeah. So it's
Sometimes
unfortunate,
I hear
but it's
everything.
very like to be the norm for this, unless they take away marking in combat like they took it away and they took away putting it on the ground, which would be a big problem for everyone else.
I
That
mean,
would suck.
Yep.
what? That's the only purpose of the markers, though, is to use them in combat. You
Yep.
don't actually gain anything from doing it before the pull.
Yep.
They might as well just remove head markers entirely at that point.
Please don't.
Please don't. Yeah.
But also, please don't. But
I mean, but that's the fear. I think that's everyone's logical fear when they see just what's being done with it.
I've never been comfortable with the marker thing for like
Yeah.
GLs and stuff. I don't know. I've never thought it was bad enough to necessitate any of that.
Yeah, but it's not that the mechanic's bad enough. It's that the people doing it are.
Yeah. And I'm also the guy who reads the text box on Nail's head. So
I do the same thing.
I was kind of sad when they changed it. Well, when they changed it from in Shadow, they changed the text when Shadowbringers came out. On one hand, I was happy about it because they added line breaks, which thank God. But on the other hand, they made it sound so much dorkier.
Yep. They sure
It's
did.
it's
Easy to read those ones.
Yeah, you'd
It's
look
really
for
cringe to say out loud.
keywords. You'd be like, "Oh, blazing." I know what that means. You just look for a keyword or two, and that's it. And that was
I never found the consistency of the words to be an issue so much as just not having line breaks in the text. But now they have that, so it's okay.
Yeah, but I mean, like that was how I read it. Like I didn't like read the whole thing and be like, say the whole thing. Like I would look for one keyword twice.
Yeah.
Two keywords, and that would do the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, that's an unfortunate truth. It's very likely to be the norm for this. So expect to see, if you plan on PFing this, first of all, God bless your soul. Second of all, Allegan Melons.
There you go.
I hate it. Remove it.
I hate it too.
Yes.
But it is
And
what
that
it
brings
is.
us to the final phase of top Alpha Omega. Now, there's one thing I want to ask before getting anything out of the way. The first thing, how many times did y'all try to mit through the first Cosmo memory before you just decided to just
One time.
tank LB it?
0.
That was
we
it?
No,
got
that was
there
one
once,
time.
died. We got there once, died to it. We saw how much damage it was as a tank LB.
No, we actually
Okay.
no, we got there with like at the end of Blind Fate they killed half the party because they killed mostly everyone except one person and 2 tanks I think only lived the Blind Fate damage because that was like the first time we're seeing it. We didn't know it was 19%. We didn't know if we were gonna die or not. So like half the party died, and then when we got there we saw it and only MT was alive and he took 300k damage from it. We're like, oh, maybe this is like Grand Cross Omega.
Oh,
Where
you're
it's
right.
a party-wide split. Everyone has to be
you're
alive.
right.
And the damage is split party-wide. So we're like, okay, next time we come, we'll just mitigate it. We died instantly again, so we're like, okay, tank LB now.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
just tried
you're right,
one
you're
time
right.
to mitigate it.
We thought it was split damage the first time, and that's why it hits so hard. And the second time, it still did like 300k. And 300k is like the magic number where it's tank LB, right? Because it's 5 times your health.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it'll reduce it. What is it? 80%?
80%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll bring 5 times down to 1 times.
Yeah, so it's it all makes sense. Yeah, I mean, by the time we got there, it was already public knowledge that it was going to be that it was LB3. So for us, obviously, it never happened. More importantly, is I think most people probably the first time they saw that phase, they DPS LB on the previous phase. To squeeze out just nerves and everything mean your first
Yeah.
run through that previous.
I actually
Right.
We did too.
did we?
Yeah, we LB3 to
I thought
finish
the
off the
first time that we got through Omega with everyone alive, we just like absolutely demolished the boss, and we didn't even LB.
No,
I thought
we
that's what happened.
Melo beat it, and we had a lot. We had that's like damage downs, I think, coming out of Omega too.
Oh yeah, people.
Not everyone
were
was even
getting
alive.
damage downs, right?
Not everyone had 3 stacks at that point. It's the first time we're like, let's just make sure it's not 19% again. So Melo beat it. Cause we got there before, we died to 9999. It was like 30%. So it's either like we originally thought everyone had to have 3 stacks to everyone survive, or it's a damage check again, like a damage number. So we tried damage number the next time and it worked. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, predation damage.
Yeah.
By the way, damage down. They were like, "Oh, DSR damage down." I guess that wasn't enough. This one's like 90%. It's like, what? Just kill me. Stop letting me live.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I'd rather have a 30-second damage down 90% rather than 3 minutes where you just have to kill yourself to fix it. I think it's kind of bad
just kill
design.
me
You have to
at
kill
that
yourself.
point. Why let me live
Yeah.
at all? Like, why? What kind of purgatory is this that you're fucking throwing me into right now? Rude.
Hitting with the
And then the
weapon.
next thing being the Cosmo Arrow Dance
Oh
that
Christ.
y'all have gotten so accustomed to. How many times is the word wait going to make you just wait? Why didn't you wait?
Don't wait that many times or you're dead. But yeah.
I mean,
We didn't have that many issues with it. We saw it one time. We had someone draw out all the expanding AoEs, and we saw a pattern pretty much instantly within one pull. And no one actually really died too much to that. It was just the second time you see it, now you have to be like, okay, we got to change it now. Because the first time we did it, it's just like in out in or out in whatever. But the second time we had to go start splitting up because their AoEs coming up, and that's when I feel like people started dying more because I guess the splitting up part actually messed with people's brains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had a few people that struggled with just chilling, like just like, okay, there it goes, it's my time, and then it's
Gotta go and die.
Yeah, that's one of those things that is gonna vary so much from party to party because some people are just unable to slow their brain down and just think about every step of it logically. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the ultimate version of Rubicante's first thing that he does when he goes into his dark mode. That's every patch. There's something that the dev team either discovers or comes up with new markers for. The expanding AoEs was the patch of expanding AoEs. It's in the 24 man.
They had that stuff in Titan. That's always what I think of.
Yeah.
Titans are little brownie squares.
Yeah, little brownie squares. And that was the thing here, and it was just a chill for 1 second and wait. I did think there were going to be tripwires from Criterion. I really thought there were, especially when I found out it was the same dev who did Criterion Savage, but he also did T. So there's room for both.
There's something I've always noticed as a pattern for a while now in content that comes out in the same patch is a lot of the time content that comes out together in the same patch or like sequentially, a lot of the times they'll reuse a lot of similar mechanics in between them. Like
even Wave Cannon, the extra AoE is similar to Rubicante again. Like, the spread in Rubicante left like a ground marker afterwards. Same thing in Wave Cannon, the spread left a ground marker.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a thing that happens a lot. I always think of when they did Twice Come Ruin, Thrice Come Ruin. I guess they used both in Eden's Promise. In the patch, like immediately after that, they added Delubrum, which also had that same debuff everywhere, right? And then you think
but they changed it that time though. I think they gave damage downs in Delubrum, right?
It was also a damage down. But they reuse a similar concept, like usually a couple times in a row whenever they come up with one. And you have the same thing with what is it? The number debuff, like on the party list, first in line, second in line, third in line. A bunch of content came out all at the same time with that, like all in a row. And right now it seems like it's something that's here to stay, which I'm fine with. I think it's a really good addition. But it's a pattern you notice where that is a thing that actually happens where like the X trial that comes out with the ultimate will have a lot of like similar stuff in it because that's something that happens a lot. I've noticed.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't mind. I think 14 is at its best when the game is trying to inform its players consistently, and I think that's just kind of it doesn't seem too deliberate. Like I don't think they did it in Rubicante to inform you for Ultimate, but it creates that kind of sense of continuity.
I don't know if it's deliberate in the sense that they're specifically going out of their way to use similar things in both contents, but it's just. Maybe it's just how their development pipeline works. Mm-hmm. It just happens, by coincidence potentially.
Yep. Yeah. And somebody brings up the PlayStation markers in both. Yeah, DSR and Barbaricha. Yeah, that was another one. There's a few other overlaps.
That happens a lot.
I think PlayStation markers are here to stay forever.
Yeah, and then there's also the chains, the being chained to the location, and you can't leave that location kind of thing is also Barbaricha DSR. So, yeah, there's always a little bit of something.
I always think of the mechanic where the finger is like pointing around on your head and you're running in that direction. They use that a few times in a row too.
Yeah, I think we saw that. Yeah, we've seen that a lot, but I think you might be thinking of when we saw it in Bozja, because I think we saw it a few times in that patch when. I was
thinking they put it in the 24-man, and then the patch after they put it in the Savage. I remember that was a big thing everyone's talking about for Guardian.
That arrow thing could be pretty hard if they added like ultimate.
Dude, if Guardian was in here, I would have been sick to my stomach. I don't like that fight as it is, and if that finger pointer found its way into Ultimate, I'd be upset, genuinely.
Yeah, you could look through all kinds of patches in the game and probably find patterns like that. That's something that happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so yeah, X square Sly. That's where we were.
Yeah. And then the unlimited wave cannon. Excuse me.
Well, actually, no. There's one other thing, and I'm surprised you forgot the other thing, because the other thing is like a up your alley thing.
I mean,
Mr. Dragoon over here. Are you mad because his LB3 is better than yours is?
Not really, no.
But I can tell it matters to them. The groans are real to the Cosmo Dive.
Oh, I don't know what it was about Cosmo Dive, but for some reason, everyone just really disliked the Cosmo Dive. I think we struggled a bit figuring it out.
Hated how cryptic it is. I don't like cryptic stuff that makes like no.
I actually don't even think it's that cryptic, to be honest. I think we just got really unlucky in that the first thing that we tried was wrong, but we looked like it was right, so we kept doing it while trying other stuff and also doing the wrong thing that we thought was right, but kept working because it was wrong in a way that we lived. So we Oh yeah, that one left a sour taste in everyone's mouth, I think.
That's fair. I honestly, for me, Cosmo Dive was the reality check of how strict the mitigation check was for the phase.
Oh boy, we didn't even know that until the wave cannon.
Oh yeah, the fucking wild charge wave cannon. That shit was scary, dude. The second one is.
So the thing about that phase is you look at all the like party stacks and tank busters, you're like, oh, this is just like any other final phase where you need to plan out your party emits so that party can live through all this damage, right? But no, it's actually your tanks that you have to worry about, because holy shit, when you get slammed with 400,000 damage tank busters every 20 seconds 4 times in a row, and the party is like chilling with like 2 or 3 cooldowns, you're literally using party emits just to keep the tanks alive at that point. It's pretty bad.
Yeah,
That's
our
how the mechanics are
paladin,
designed, bro.
You know what our paladin did? He kept his wings on through it to block for the other tank and keep the block rate for himself after popping all his other cooldowns.
We were scraping for it. We actually went back into our phase 5 and we switched all so at first we were doing like at the start of the phase 5 before Delta, we were doing CDs and then invuln and CDs and then invuln, because it lined up with your 2 minutes, right? So the tanks were doing 2 minutes with CDs, but we had to go back and switch it just to get our invuls off cooldown, because we just could not figure out how to survive without having invuls. So we had to get them up faster. It was very scary.
Yep. It is really scary because I mean, it's like you were gonna go on to unlimited wave cannon. Unlimited wave cannon is the freebie of the whole phase.
True.
You think so?
Well,
Just
it's
run
not
in a
X's
circle.
squares. It's X. Yeah, it's X's, but there's circles that follow you as well.
But I've seen you complain about why are people dying to exaflares and
No,
I've seen so many-
I was worried about people dying to XL, because here's the thing. So one thing we kind of skipped over: when you survive with the tank LB3 and the 3 Dynamis stacks, your buff changes to quickening Dynamis, and that acts as a tank LB3 on everyone for the rest of the phase. It's like 80% damage mitt on everything. If you die and you lose it, you're dead because you don't have the limit break, but you're also just dead to every single instance of damage you take. So when somebody dies, even if you get them back up to attempt to resolve the next thing so you can prog, it's all in vain because you've seen everything by the time anyone would die and get back, except for Cosmo Meteor. So it's just gut-wrenching pain is all it is.
That's a brutal way to do it. Yeah, one death and you're just not gonna live anymore. You're just dead for the rest of the phase, pretty much.
So that's what it is. It's because X's themselves or whatever. There's a tell, like there is a specific way you want to do it. It's not like other ones where it's like, oh, we have good pattern, bad pattern, whatever. You know, this one's.
Wait, I think you have to clarify for Twitch chat. I don't know if they know what you're talking about. This is exajoules.
Okay, so I didn't know about the Joel thing until yesterday. I was like, who's Joel? And then I finally saw it. And then I was watching on Echo stream earlier, and there are people with the shark mount just doing rotations now.
That's
when I first heard it, I thought they were talking about the Last of Us series because Joel, Last of Us just started on HBO. I'm like, well, how does Joel have to do with this fight? I guess that was not right at all.
It's one of those memes where someone just came up with it for no reason other than because they wanted a spinning fish called Joel, and you know how Twitch chat is. It's a spammable thing, so they spam it.
Yep.
Like there they go.
There are the Joels, all the Joels. But it's fun because now I'm seeing, because the ocean fishing shark has like 10,000 ocean fishing points, and yep, that's the one. Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious. I think Twitch spam is hilarious. That's exactly my.
There are some I don't get that aren't funny to me, but Joel's
it doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah,
sometimes it's funny because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but sometimes it's just like the tree doesn't do it for me. Like I'm not I don't know about the tree enjoyer. It just doesn't tickle my funny bone in any way.
Same. I think that one was kind of a miss.
Things like a black and white like Cleese and it being Cleese online, that's funny. Because he was knife manning his Cleese online.
Let's go.
That's so funny. Anyway. But yeah, no, Sly, unlimited wave cannon is the freebie. It's what happens after it that's not a freebie. Both times.
You mean Cosmo Meteor?
No, Cosmo Meteor is
Really?
like the very end.
Wave
That,
cannon.
Like
Yeah.
mechanics with Cosmo Dive are easy, and like mechanics with Wave Cannon are hard. That's how it works.
Yeah, because what ends up happening right after, so the way the phase works is some mechanics are pantomimed and some are done sequentially. So the boss always goes Exaline, unlimited wave cannon, Exaline, unlimited wave cannon. But for the other one, he goes Cosmo Dive, wave cannon, Cosmo Dive. And so it forces you to do them in the opposite order both times.
He does. He has 2 mechanics that make you move, and 2 mechanics that do damage to you, and he does every combo once.
Yep. And
And all the ones with Wave Cannon are hard, and all the ones with Cosmo Dive are easy.
Yep, because it's 8-player spreads and then a wild charge, which I know Narr hates to hear the term because it's not what this is. But
That one's okay because it's hard to describe otherwise.
yeah, it's just
That
the
one's
tank.
okay in my book.
It's also one of the oldest ones I could do, similar to Chariot, because
Yeah.
it's final coil.
It's like when you're saying Chariot when you could just say Circle. But if you're like explaining a stack that deals the most damage to the front 2 people or maybe one,
Call it a tank line.
yeah, tank line, wild charge. It's just the tanks need to
that
be
one's
in
okay because it's not just replacing a word with another more cryptic word. It's actually shortening an explanation.
As long as everyone understands it, because you still have to explain it if somebody doesn't know what that means. But that wild charge is the single scariest thing in the whole phase.
Yeah. Oh boy. It hurt. It feels like it hurts more than the dive too. But even though I think they're probably actually the same, but
Probably.
it's just way scarier.
I actually think it's very interesting that they made the wave cannon cast bar 11 seconds instead of 10. So you can't just use debuffs on the boss as soon as the cast bar starts, because you're not going to catch the final hit. And you want to catch the 2 single hits as well, which plays a big role in the second wave cannon with the Cosmo Arrow. So it's like very important to get the timing down, where you have like a 2-second window to get your addles and your reprisals up.
Yep, and that second one is the really scary one because at that point you're bleeding for defensives, and you're trying to do the Cosmo Arrow at the same time.
And you're all over the room
Yep,
too,
and
so you
you're
can't
all
reach
over
anyone. with
Like
half the
soil
stuff.
won't hit everyone.
Yep, and one slip up and you die and you lose that Dynamis stack. When doing a tank goes there, you're like, oh no. Because you know the next mechanic is an easy one, and then it's the Cosmo Dive, which isn't an easy one, but like you're going into another easy to execute combo right afterwards. It's just all down to mitigation and the baited lines and all that. So that one hurts. But then
Choke
you know
check.
what was kind of so you know how sometimes when you watch someone do a clear, like a clear VOD, it's not incredibly apparent how scary something is until you've actually done it. That's
Yeah,
Cosmo
for sure.
Meteor.
You think so? I was chilling.
Those fucking comets hit so hard. Those
Everyone makes
fucking
fun of
things
me.
do 100,000 damage each, and they all happen twice on top of the one at the
yeah,
end.
yeah. Those do a lot of damage. Actually, yeah. We had to figure that out a little bit. I think.
That
That's
shit
ridiculous.
fucking hurt.
We actually only died to Meteor one time after we.
Yeah, because our
Not
healers are
even.
cracked and they solved the puzzle instantly. But that doesn't make it not scary.
Yeah, I think you guys sent the white mage in the middle to deploy off of them. We ended up, I think, copying that. I think that was you guys. It was either you or Ethan.
No, we had Astro and Scholar.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just
so it's-
macroed.
Yeah. Oh god.
It's because,
no wonder I fucking didn't have trouble.
Raimi would deploy one of the mechanics, but he would specifically deploy off of me for tank mitigation because I wouldn't survive the first Cosmo dive without
Oh
a
yeah. So
personal crit
you
Adlo.
needed the full value.
So he would
galvanized plus,
crit
yeah.
Adlo me, and I would run into the middle, and then he would deploy it, and I would turn around and run back out to do the arrow. But
Yeah, that makes sense. That checks out. Yeah, we ended up having the white mage step into the middle after the meteors went out, and then we deployed off of them while they GCD healed from the center. So that was
that
our
makes sense.
solution to it. Yeah, because that shit
that's pretty good,
fucking
actually.
hurt.
It hurts. Yeah, they hurt. Yeah.
Like I didn't realize. Like I remember I was watching the clear VOD and I was like, okay, the comets drop. There's 2 sets of 4, and then there's a split damage comet at the end plus the 3 flares. Blah blah blah. Whatever. We'll just heal through that, mitigate it. Whatever. Then I got hit.
Like a truck.
Yeah, it's like a truck from the sky because that shit was painful. But
No.
I mean, you kind of, other than that, like Cosmo Meteor looks like, oh, I'm in the home stretch, and then you just get fucking squashed.
If you're me,
But
you're
you are in
chilling.
the home stretch
You are in the home stretch, yeah, but
Yeah.
it fucking hurt. The home stretch hurts.
because pretty much after Cosmo Meteor is the what I like to call the LB gambit, so to speak.
Well, Cosmo Meteor itself
Um,
is part of that, even before Cosmo Meteor, because you want to burn both. The
Yeah,
melee
it's the
LBs,
beginning
yeah.
of the LB gambit.
So
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the dev intended strat, I think, is they want you to start the limit breaks with the cast for LB. And that's why the enrage is 30 seconds long cast. So you have
three
time to do
melee
3 melee
LBs.
LBs. I think that's what
I
they
actually
want
don't
you to
agree
do.
with that.
That
I think
would
they
be
want you
awful.
to 3 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They want you to
But
use a
you
final
think
set of
so?
2 minutes at the
We-
end. I think that's the
The
intended way.
DPS check was so easy when we did that, though. Like, we literally one-shot it. I think
we
did more
one shot it, but
damage
we
than
died at the
intended.
same time, right?
Yeah,
We
but we did, right? I think we did more trickery than they intended. I don't know.
I actually
it
have
lines
something
up
to say.
to me.
I actually have something to say about that that final DPS check because I don't know if y'all were. Oh, well, how was the final DPS check for? Well, you said it was pretty easy for your group. Happy. How about yours when you got to? How many times did you see that final DPS check?
Twice. 0.3%
Twice.
and then a kill. Mm-hmm.
Fair.
I guess technically we
Um,
got one in rage at 6%, and then we were like, let's change the cooldowns, and we changed the cooldowns, and then it died. So I guess we had 2 also.
But here's the thing, though. That DPS check is not just that DPS check. It's every DPS check that got you up to that point to get you through
Yeah.
that phase. Even with the huge break in between the phases, you need to make sure your 2s go where they go in phase 5, or you're fucked in phase 6.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing I saw, and this was like heartbreaking to me. I don't know if they told you or if you've seen, but Svia's group got to that final DPS check and like they were about to pop. Everybody was about to pop all their 2s, and they did. But the monk DC'd as they were
It was a
popping.
ninja. The ninja DC'd.
It was the
There's no-
ninja. Oh, I
and-
thought
and
it
There
was
was a
the
ninja.
They
There was a
start
ninja
bursting,
DC'd.
and there's
Yeah.
no mug on the boss.
Yep.
Tragic.
Yep. I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
Shinda.
Oh, that must have
Oh,
been
man.
so awful.
Yeah, that's at least though it feels awful, but it's almost better than something that's in your control going wrong. It's like, yeah, it was
because
out
you
of our
knew that,
control.
but the thing is, you knew that was pretty much the kill once everybody
it
popped
sucks
their 2.
because you're already at the end and you can see that it's about to die.
That red Pokeball
Yeah.
must have been devastating to
And
see
then
for
you
them.
just see what the fuck happened to the damage. Like where's our oh.
Look at Kyo being like, we wouldn't have killed at that pull anyway. Crits!
Yeah, it wasn't gonna be
You
a quick
already
kill
know
show.
you did
Anybody killed it.
everything right.
Just crit! Please. You never know with
Small
the crit.
consolation.
Yeah. They're holding 2s until they saw Mug, and then there was no Mug. We ended up changing it so Mug and Tech hit at the exact same second. That was because otherwise it was like Tech normally hits when Mug is at like 18 or 17, but then it loses 7 seconds at the end. So we had to make a few changes to that. Oh,
But he did get his spot off. That's great.
Yeah.
Great.
yeah.
Pot into disconnect true combo.
Yeah.
So what did you guys think of the Enrage? You know, in the other Ultimates T, you had this special huge show, and we had this show, and then in DSR and even this one, they're kind of just like, just kill you. Doesn't really do anything.
I was a fan of it, actually. I think the whole knocking people out one by one thing, it's just been done so many times, I guess. The stress, there's 2 different stresses. There's the stress of your damage slowing down as people get killed one by one or jailed one by one. There's also the stress of watching a cast bar go all the way to full and just praying that you finish it before.
Oh, this fight had 2 of those.
Yeah, it does. It's
That's I actually really don't like the super long cast bar because it moves so slowly. You like struggle to really gauge how fast it's actually going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think this is on point. Looking at most final phases, they tend to be just kind of what the Exa dance is into something that is, kill you one at a time. I think the most stressful one in that regard is probably DSR, the auto attack mechanic, on top of just that tiny safe spot for the way people just committed to doing X's, plus the mit on Gigas, and like there's so many stressful elements there. But for this one, once you're 2 Cosmo Meteor, the mitigation still needs to happen there, which I think is the one caveat. But you're kind of at a 90-second enrage cast essentially as soon as you get to Cosmo Meteor in this, because that's when it's actually like beginning. That's when the big push is happening, and the thematic of the fight, the theme of the fight with the Dynamis, it's in full swing at that moment. So I kind of liked it. Like I consider what's it called, the magic number. I mean that's just as much part of the enrage to me as anything else. That's the did you die or did you do Dynamis correct? Like it's all those checks at once.
Yeah, I guess I kind of see the point of view that it's like, oh, it's just a cast bar and it kills you. It's kind of boring, but I also like never really felt it was that boring.
It's just the anxiety of 19 minutes potentially being down the drain.
Yeah, time of the very last thing, yeah.
Like if you just look at it strictly, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like technically, I guess that's the word I'm looking for. If you just look at it on like a technical level, sure, like it's kind of just a long cast bar that kills you. But I don't know, it just fits well. It's a lot of it's just about how everything just fits together. It doesn't feel like it's boring.
And I'm not gonna lie, it's not like it's that much more exciting for UCOB Mornifa. He just Mornifas 8 times, like whatever. And in DSR, he just does, Giga Chad, Akmorn.
Mornifas.
Yeah,
in fact,
it's also Mornifas.
Oh yeah,
if you think about it, this is actually the first ultimate that kills everyone at once.
It is. Yeah, unless for some reason all 8 of you stood in the Mornifas at the end of DSR. Which I'm sure there's at least one group that didn't think of to not stick people in them the first time they saw it. And all 8 just... Pff. That's a depressing thought. It's Mornifa, just stacking mid. Why do the markers look different? Oh well, not going to worry about that. But yeah, T-Enrage and Uwu are... they're the big ones. This one's still pretty cool. He also does a whole huge speech. Again, the whole like Omega, the way he speaks to you the entire time is actually really fucking cool. Like whenever he does the Cosmo dive, he's like the power of the worm that like soared the stars or something like that.
I think it's cool because
I love reading those too.
He's like kind of starting to, he's got like alpha in his heart. He's kind of starting to gain like an understanding of how an emotion works, and he's like suddenly thinking about all of his travels, and he's like suddenly starting to have emotions about it.
Yeah, and
Kinda
then
crazy.
During his enrage, he says something like, "Through Alpha, I've learned to comprehend what makes." No, he's like, "I counted the mortals among your star as some of the weakest in the galaxy," and he's just like, he just goes on this like huge villain speech during the entire final cast.
My man was spitting.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So
He
there's
just starts getting super poetic about everything.
Yeah, like I couldn't tell you what Dragon King Thornton says when he's doing all that shit. I just know that he's just stroking his own ego the whole time. Whereas Omega's having a fucking epiphany.
All I remember is Sepp tweeting the trick attack icon. Aha, dude, the power of mine enemies, I grow more powerful.
Yeah, that's why he couldn't kill us. He never used Mug. He never tricked.
That in here.
Yeah, the only thing that could have made it better was voice acting, but I think Omega's not exactly the character to voice. The only voice we have for him is the fucking Alexa April Fool's voice, and that's all I can hear when I think of Omega's voice. You are adopted. Ha, 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 ha.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
There's an April
but I think
Fool's
it makes
joke where
sense.
they made an Alexa equivalent of Omega as like a home like assistant.
Oh, that was
thing.
so long ago.
Was that part of the giveaway in Mock Talk this time around? Or was it like just...
Yeah,
Yes,
they
actually it
gave
was.
one of those away.
Okay, yeah.
But it's a homemade because they never actually made it because it was an April Fool's joke. So that's like a fan made one. I don't know if it has an Alexa housed in it the one that they gave away on Mog Talk, or if it is just the model of it. Yeah, and then it wave cannoned the family. Yes, that's what it did. That was pretty fun. Play romantic music. Chicken tenders.
I hate when my Alexa does that.
Sometimes on stream, I just say, like, people's things. I'll just be like, hey, Google, set a timer for 5 minutes. And then everyone's like, son of a bitch. It's like, stop watching me through your speakers. That's unwise. Okay, it was the model. Man, that would have been cool if they housed an Alexa inside of it. And because you can change Alexa to answer to other things, can't you? That isn't Alexa. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you could actually get it to, yeah. That would be pretty cool.
I had a roommate that changed it to computer. So she would say, computer, do this thing. I always thought that was cool.
Oh, it was a cover to, okay, so I think the chat said it was a cover that you could put over your own one. Okay, there you go. But yeah, this is an exhilarating fight. Like, even though I think there are absolutely weak points, I think the whole picture together, like you said, just it's impressive to see that the developer that came from T has picked up as much as he has and has produced this now.
Yeah, this and DSR, both these ultimates, just I think they really outshine the rest of the ones before them. Just in mechanically, aesthetically. Big fan of the last two ultimates, and it's very sad there's not going to be a new one for like another 1.5 years at least.
I wanted to ask you guys about that. Do you actually think it would be a good idea to have another ultimate in 0.5, given the level of stress and or effort and or time investment being what they have been for the last two?
So,
and drama.
The whole reason... So in Stormblood, they were going to do 3. I don't know if you remember. Like, their plan was to do 3 in Stormblood, and they ended up canceling the last one because, people said it's too much or something, like in like JP or like, I don't know where they got that, but that was their justification for it when they talked about it. People were saying that it's too much. Like they can't catch up on the old ones because they're taking too long to clear them or something. So, that's just not going to happen, I think, like, no matter what.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying, how do you feel personally, given the quality and, I guess, demanding nature of these two? Say this were to be the new norm for all of them. Would you think it would even be healthy to have a third one?
That'd be, another 8 months apart? I think it'd be completely fine. 8 months.
I'd do a third one.
Yeah, I'd do a third one easy.
Maybe you're not the audience to ask, because I feel like the answer is always going to be yes.
Yeah, do a third one here.
That'd be an easy yes. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, because
I think I'm ready. I'm ready to start next week.
Stop.
I'd be down for, even if it's like every patch ultimate, I'd do it every patch.
You can't be.
I'm thinking of, like, so you guys got through it in 6 days, 6 to 7 days both times, right? Like, it's like, this one's what, 7.5 days, I think.
Yeah.
I wasn't keeping like 8.
It was like 7 days for this one and 6 for the first one.
Yeah. That doesn't sound as bad. But then you've got everyone who's now on week 3, and it's not looking as great.
Yeah. It's yeah.
So when I say good, I say healthy to have it. I mean more in that regard. Less of a, oh man, I would jump on it, and more of a status of the game and the players who it's targeted at.
I mean, it's like a personal team thing. You guys need to, everyone should have expectations, after like a week, then say like, okay, we're going to tone down the amount of re-raid. Like, go back to normal schedule. Could do 3 weeks of like constant 12 to 16 hours. I don't think I could do that ever. That seems impossible.
Yeah. It's like, I guess I always plan for 10 days, like heavy hours, but after that you have to like go back to normal life hours, right? Like, you can't do that forever. So
yeah, we'll be definitely discussing that next week on the show, because mental and physical health and how it applies to rating is super, super real. And I think a lot of people will put the game over their mental health for just long enough to go fucking crazy. So we've seen actually even a lot of hardcore people stepping back from top just from just what they're going through. Like it's just what it's
Right.
putting them through, and it's a tough one because some of us either have the dedication or the time available or both to do 3, but at the same time, man, we've got another Savage tier. We've got a Criterion Savage. We got 2 Criterions. I'm gonna say, what are you gonna say?
It's like I'm ready to fucking go, but it's not good for the game to have more than 2. Like it's just not good for the game, I think.
Yeah.
What I wish they would do is 2 ultimates, and then the 5th patch would be the 48-man Savage every time. Like it's like a pattern, ultimate 48-man. I think that'd be the most fun because 48-man is really stressful. It's a good way to end an expansion too, because it's something like a lot of people can come together and do in multiple communities. Like DRS brought together a lot of people, right? Like Primal Discord, the Ether Discord, everyone's doing it. I would be a big fan of just 2 ultimates and a large scale raid.
I love that that's the result of everyone saying fuck Eureka until BA came out and been like, God damn it. Now I wish I'd done it the whole time.
Why'd you put this cool thing at the end? Yeah, I didn't do Eureka either, and I don't know. I actually even think it's kind of fun. I just never did it.
Yeah.
I really regretted that, honestly. It's so hard to get in there now. I want to go in there and
No,
do
it's
my
not.
relics, but
It's actually really easy.
well, it's maybe if you know what to do, it's easy. But for me, it's like I go in there and my head spins. Like I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Right? It's
Fortunately
hard
for you, there's this great online guide for how to get caught up in Eureka in just about 40 hours total.
Can I get where's the Mr. Happy guide? Can I get that right in my DMs?
I have it. I have a video series.
right.
It takes about
Let's
40
go.
hours to complete.
I need to know how to farm a relic by myself.
It's easy, actually. There's some great tricks for it. Did you know that if you kill a monster while you're level synced, or I'm sorry, you kill a monster while you're not level synced, and then you level sync to a fate as it dies, you'll just get the EXP as if it was.
Oh yeah, I used to do that.
Yeah, that's a trick
that.
in Pagos. That's a big trick in Pagos to speed
Yeah, I
up.
did that to level up, but I'm also like I have no idea how to do the relic.
Yeah, that's how you do the relic too.
Oh, let's go.
That's how you do the light farm. Yep.
Happy Oji-san.
Yeah, it's just. I listen. I'll get you through in no time at all. I've helped many a soul.
Let's
You will
go.
be
I'm
the
casual
next
content
soul.
enjoyer. I just missed out on that one.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll definitely get another 48-man this expansion. I'm full on the Hopium completely.
No, we're getting a deep dungeon instead. Remember?
Deep dungeons in a month. Any interest?
Not really.
No solo
I'll do
interest.
it. Me and Snap will do it.
Where's
I'll
the
Snap will do
solo? Gotta do the solo. And then there's 2 more Criterions still. Which depending on what I might not even
completely
do
forgot about
Criterions. I might not do Criterion Savage if the rewards are the same. I might just only do Criterion, I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
but just for the completion, I'm gonna do it. But
Yeah,
it's kind of
you know,
self-reward.
you know the thing about the Criterion Savage is that you get this book and a title, right? But all you get for this book is one materia.
Hey, you can get a banner for your
Or a
house that
banner.
you totally have.
It's like, oh boy, my one materia. I think it would have been less insulting if you just got nothing.
Just the title and just sent you home.
Yeah, just a title and nothing. Like a book.
Oh yeah, it's
that
like you can get an
exchange for
earring.
one
Come
materia.
on, don't be so dramatic.
There's an earring?
Yeah.
I thought that was for normal.
No, actually, I think it is from Savage.
I think there's 2 different earrings, one for normal, one for Savage. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. But no, there's 2 more of those. That's in 0.45 and 0.55.
They
as
should have just
stick
put
to
all the
schedule.
rewards in normal and just have Savage give you nothing but a title.
That's kind of what I mean, the mount is basically a normal mode.
Yeah.
You know, you only need
Well, it is.
25 runs of normal mode to get it.
You don't even get the normal mode item from Savage. You literally don't get it.
Nope. That was extra insulting that you just don't get the 4 coins at the end of it all.
They did that with Rathalos, where if you
They
did
should.
Extreme, you got the normal mode one too. But
Yeah, you get 4 of the. You get. I know you get the one off the tail. That's the one that's.
yeah,
Yeah.
There's the 4 red ones and then the one even more extra red one.
Someone who's colorblind. Thank you for the description.
You're welcome.
But yeah, I mean that's the thing. There's still so much more content that's left in the expansion. I know it doesn't feel like it at times, especially once post-clear depression sets in. I'm sure you guys are scouring through Twitch streams to see who's working on on shit. I don't. Did you guys do that? Did everyone like be like, I'm gonna copium now by watching other people do it?
The ultimate?
Yeah.
That's one of the best parts.
Yeah,
After you
beat it
clear,
early
you get
and
to
watch everyone
You get
else.
to open the command center. My friend Bokchoy, every time he clears a piece of content, he'll open his command center and have a multi-twitch open with 9 people's different streams on it, watching all of them at the same time, maximizing whichever one's the farthest in the fight. And I think it's hilarious.
There's
the
post
best
clear
part.
depression and there's I'm not hardcore progging depression. And they both lead down the same path of just watching other people like.
It takes you a couple days to get out of the time vortex.
I
Because
slept
everything feels weird
I
once you're
slept
done.
better during prog than for 3 days after.
Yeah, my sense of time is always completely fucked for like at least 2 days afterwards.
Yeah, I was in bed by 9 p.m. every night during prog. That night, I was up till like 1 in the morning. It was like I needed to like live the freedom.
Yeah, exactly. I always stay up after we clear too. We were up for like 24 hours on our last day, I think, and we cleared. And I just sat there watching streams for like 4 more hours.
Oh my god.
I
mean, compared to
I don't
DSR,
have to
we
be
were-
healthy anymore.
Compared to DSR, we were a lot more healthier with our sleep schedule this time. In DSR, we had like 4 to 6 hour nights only, like 4 hours of sleep. But this time around, we started with 7 on the first few days, then we moved it to 8 hours of sleep every night. And we were actually very consistent with that. We didn't like say we're gonna wake up early at all. So that was definitely a good mental break compared to DSR. Where it's just
Yeah, we
like 4
actually-
hours, go to sleep for 4 hours, and waking back up, we're going back in immediately.
Yeah, I remember we had Zepp and Skylar on for our DSR show, and yeah, they talked a little bit about that, and that it wasn't great.
More sleep
for
definitely
people
helped,
who-
especially. Oh, go on.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we actually like actively started raising the amount that we were sleeping because partway through this prog we realized, wow, this fight is very mentally taxing. we really need it. We were doing way better when we sleep more. Like you can't brute force your way through that first phase like with any amount of consistency when you're just like completely brain dead. It's crazy.
The Echo Cast is already learning that a few hundred pulls in today.
It's
For
completely
people
different.
who champion, mental and physical well-being, after y'all are done with prog, y'all do some of the most fucking
Listen,
dumbest
when
shit.
you've been working really hard at something, sometimes you need to be awake to de-stress and not asleep because you associate the sleep with what
Go
you're
the
going to
fuck
be
sleep.
doing the next
Go
day.
the fuck to sleep.
Yeah, no, seriously, like you associate the I'm going to bed to wake up to do this thing. So you just like it's part of the ritual, and the whole point of being done with it is to break the ritual. So it like fucks with your head a little bit.
Also, when you're sitting there like doing this crazy fight for hours and hours, and you kill it, just sitting like leaning back in your chair and just sitting there and just literally not thinking about anything feels as relaxing as sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah. It's post clear clarity.
You're just sitting there like totally potatoed, like
I say my reaction pretty much encapsulates it all. Yes.
Now I can sleep.
Good job, everyone.
I've never been much of a post clear pop off screamer.
I think
Everyone-
the way I popped off against Uwu will never happen again. Well, I don't think I could ever repeat that. And that was because that was non-deliberate, but this was just a visceral, it's thank God. It was such a relief.
We were really feeling the grind at the end. I think we all wanted to be done.
Did anyone cry? Because like I cried at the end of DSR Prog.
I don't think so.
Oh my God. Everyone I know was in
Or if they did, then they muted.
Yeah. Everyone I know is in tears from DSR. I don't know I guess in terms of like watching other broadcasters who are doing, I don't know a single person who didn't have tears in their eyes of either joy or just emotional release. But that didn't happen here. Here it was just a quick yell and then it was back to normal. Because this fight, I don't know about you, but this fight may have been stressful to do, but I didn't find it that stressful to prog necessarily. Because there wasn't really many brain puzzles. It was consistency checks.
It's, how do I,
I thought
even
this
start this thought? Go on, Suki.
I thought this ultimate was a good mixture of brain checks and just execution. I think people say this is too hard. I don't think so. I think this is the perfect. I think they can make it even slightly harder, but going forward, I think this is the level of difficulty they should like aim for at least, rather than anything easier. I hope at least like 6-7 days for an ultimate clear is I think fair. First clear.
Fair for the first group.
I mean, the rest is they'll catch up.
They'll catch up. Yeah, it's great for us. They'll catch up. It's fine.
What do you guys do? You guys want it to be easier, or is this difficulty good?
I think this difficulty is fine. I found this fight very unstressful to do. I think it's because it played to a lot of my personal strengths in terms of pride, and I think that's going to be the big thing. Yoshi P's statement wasn't ever outright that it was easier, is that they weren't aiming to make it easier, but it was designed to be very different. So, that it may be easier to some. I fell in that category because I never found doing any of this stuff. But I'm also the person who is like, dude, this wormhole thing is actually really easy. I don't understand what everyone's saying. Because it was literally just if I can just make a bunch of rules and follow them, that's awesome. But even the random stuff, like I play Dancer. Like, what the come on. I play the most dead brain. If I was a tanker or healer, I probably would have fucking hated doing this. But as a DPS, is super dead brain, in my opinion. So for me, I think it is right. But I think, again, the problem is this and DSR both being the quality of Ultimate that released within 9 months' time. Because that's a lot. I know so many people that are just burnt on raiding right now, especially after what happened with Abyssos. That in particular kind of extended it a little bit.
This has been a pretty brutal series of things that have come out.
And I'm completely okay with it.
Yeah, I know you are. You made that abundantly clear with, just give me a third one. I'm ready to go.
Let's start next week. See you Tuesday.
Just do hell mode.
Suki loves those. Those are his favorite.
Want to come on Lost Ark now?
When's hell mode top? Oh, God, I don't even know what you do.
At some point in the future, there'll be ultimates of the ultimate version. Like ultimate UCOB eventually.
Maybe for the third one we get level 90 UCOB. Maybe that's the next step. It's level 9, just to bring it up to stuff.
Unreal.
No, but here's the thing. I feel like
you have to do level 90 coil to get your Fox thing, and then you have to do it again.
Oh God!
Every week.
Level 90 ultimate coil, but it gives you a guaranteed Fox. That's your reward for doing the ultimate.
Let's go the faux Fox.
Yep, I got the Fox, a box, and a sword just last week. It's like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but it's actually fun.
I'm kind of interested that you were saying about how you were talking about how like the people who are like progging first, they like figure out a lot of the stuff, and the people after just have to execute it, right? Or you were talking about that with Sly earlier. I'm kind of interested that you think that this fight is easier in that sense than others, because I think this fight is designed really differently in the sense that there's very little like mandatory studying that you have to do in this fight comparatively. It feels like to me this fight is almost all just execution to me.
I think it really comes down to the few things that are mild brain puzzles being big blocking points and everything. Because if you can executionally do this ultimate, then somebody handing you the diagram that makes it super easy to understand this. Like, for example, Trio 1, 2, and 3. When someone's already gone out of their way to figure out all of the, you don't have to wonder, oh, here's a worst case scenario where the fists are true random and things like that. Like, all of that's been relieved from your process. So eventually what's going to happen is there's going to be a Delta 1 strat for the PF. There's going to be a Delta 2 strat. There's going to be, a Sigma strat and an Alpha strat, or an Omega strat. Sorry, I don't know why I always call it Alpha. I think I just convinced myself it would be called that, and I just keep calling it that. And that'll be what you go through. Those will be the resources you study. And the way the fight works is it's a giant memorization game. And I think that's the part that's going to hold people, that and wiping in phase 1 a bunch, which you'll never fix. So,
I guess for the trios, because the trios are like a much more standard design. But I feel like everything else in the fight.
I mean, Hello World also, like Hello World is it's
that too.
executional, but like there's just monitors. Like someone's eventually going to copy monitor positions. Like it's still going to be down to execution. You know, it's not like knowledge is.
I think this fight is like much higher ratio of like execution to studying than any other fight they've had so far.
Yeah, I just think the average quality of players that are doing this style of content, some of them are going to have to fine tune that skill to make it easier, but I don't think that's going to supersede over time the fact that it's all solved already. You know,
Yeah.
that's just how I feel.
You say it's like, you know, you mentioned wormhole. I don't think it's hard either, but the thing that makes wormhole hard is because there's 8 different things to memorize, all the intricacies of each spot, which is, I think, the same in this fight where, you know, Delta's solved at this point, right? Everyone knows the spot, but there's like these intricate spots. Like, until you actually see it, you don't know exactly how big the hello, near, and far circles are, or like how far like you have to be on this wall or something to bait the hands or something. These like little, like you said, moving early for the patch. These small things you can't really read in a guide. These are stuff you have to like make a mistake at least one time. You know, do that position and figure out yourself. Okay, this is the timing, proper timing. You can't really get that from a guide, I think.
Yeah, when I look at a lot of, because I watch a lot of groups go through Ultimates later, and I listen to the discussions they have, and a lot of them end up in the vein of people outright not understanding a mechanic and thus being unable to kind of adjust. You know, players want to be told, stand here for this. If that's the number one biggest gripe I have as a guide maker. Is when I read a
I
comment.
could go on about this all day.
Yeah.
I understand you completely.
Yeah, as I from the early days of guide making, I've seen people who say this guy talks too much. I don't need to know what happens if I do it wrong. Just tell me where to stand. And it's
like top down versus bottom up, like I said earlier. Most people are top down. They want you to tell them the safe spots and then tell you how to tell which safe spot they're standing in. Whereas in this fight, I think a lot of the time you want to understand things bottom up. You want to know what is happening around you, and then you move to avoid that rather than remembering safe spots and learning how to recognize them, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think I've even seen that with what was the Party Finder's way of doing things for the first phase. What we did is we did a body language check where we would focus target the other person with the same number and just deliberately create space between those two players.
That is still what we do, actually.
Yes. But the PF immediately wanted to come up with a snakes type P8S priority system for how people determine where they go and who takes which tether and where their safe spot is and which one of you gets the left tower or the right tower or the west tower.
I think for PF that actually makes sense because it is actually kind of important in PF that you need to be able to point a finger and say, no, I was right. Because if there's any kind of ambiguity in an argument in PF, they will never agree, right?
Correct. Yeah.
There has to be no ambiguity in PF. So I think that makes sense. But like in groups, you can definitely just, move left and right forehead.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think that some of that, it's a similar mentality that bores those differences, I suppose. Yeah. So the player that needs to be told exactly what to do every time is, even if you can get through phase 1, that's only going to go so far in this fight, So I think being able to communicate silently or to be able to properly observe is a skill that it benefits you more here than it does in other cases.
Yeah.
I think. And a lot of that is bore from that just tell me where to go. I just need to know exactly what my job is, and I will do nothing but that exact thing. But that's what happens when like somebody's in the wrong spot and somebody could take 2 steps to the left to fix it. But they don't because they're just doing what they were told.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's brutal because there's so much more you can do when you try to understand what the ups and downs are to any singular attack in this game. There's just so much more you can do as a player.
It's like we're gonna bring this right back to Wormhole. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Most people in Wormhole, the reason most people think Wormhole is hard is because they're literally trying to memorize 8 completely separate sequences of movements. They say, I'm number 8, I'm going to go to this wall, I'm going to step left at this time, and I'm going to do this thing in this order, right? Whereas I think it's much more efficient to just kind of try to like understand the big picture in Wormhole, because then you're remembering one thing that's like maybe twice as complicated as it could be rather than 8 things.
Yep. That's exactly.
And this fight has a lot of that. Omega has a lot of that. Because there's so much RNG that you don't want to try to remember 8 completely different things. You want to just try to like understand the big picture and then slot yourself into it.
Yeah, I'd say that's why we landed on the Delta strat that we did, because we suddenly didn't have to. As soon as you had a blue tether or a green tether, everything was decided for you for the rest of the phase. So the way we did it, we had like an in and an out green tether, and we had a long and a short blue. And once you were one of those, your whole mechanic was decided. That was it. So breaking it down to that really simple component made it just, at least in my opinion, made it easier. But yeah, like you said, it's just, I don't know. People just learn different. That's all it is. People learn, they memorize, they react all different. But
if it works, it works, you know?
I think that this won't get easier until not just things are normalized, but I think until 6.5. I think people need that extra 5 item levels to make up for the inconsistency that the PF or random groups might have damage check-wise. So that's big. I think the pots in 0.4 are going to be big because phase 1 pot is massive in terms of consistency, but the extra 5 item levels in 6.5 is going to be a huge thing. But it won't save you on trios. So, at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
No, speaking of DPS check, I'm actually impressed that they made this not easy after the PNS situation where they actually had to nerf it.
Wait.
So,
did you guys make jokes about is this the same team that tested Abyssos? Is this the same team?
I think we had jokes that like they're definitely gonna nerf this fight after the first clear again, similar to PNS. But after PNS the nerf, I thought they would never make a hard DPS check ever again. But I'm pleasantly surprised that they pulled this off, because I really do like hard DPS checks. And I hope P12S is also going to be a hard DPS check. Maybe even as hard as PNS, and they can nerf it afterwards if they have to.
Just
actually, yeah, that's actually kind of incredible that this actually happened in the time frame that it did. They got so much backlash over the P8 thing. Like, people are mad.
Yeah, and not to mention that a lot of people said DSR's difficulty was the result of it having so much time to be tuned. I don't think that's the case here. I mean, they spent a lot of time on this, don't get me wrong, but this one probably not.
This one is just because this Omega is just designed, like, it's just built different, like, legitimately.
Literally.
It's legitimately just not designed the same as most fights in this game, and I think people aren't used to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully it acts as UCOB did once before it and DSR right before it, where now it's a new bar and everyone's kind of going to have to pick up what it's putting down, because if any of these skills ever come up again.
Yeah, absolutely. This fight is going to make people much better at the game, because it's a completely different way of thinking, and once people are used to it, then they're going to be used to it, you know?
Yep. For sure, for the next Ultimate, I won't be going and thinking the DPS check will be super easy. Like, going to this, everyone probably thought, there's no DPS check, mechanic check, like always.
Yep.
Bro, most of us thought this was going to be difficult. Like, they're not going to make anything like DSR again. It's like, well, it's not like DSR, but go fuck yourself. How about that?
I thought it was going to be like a T copy paste.
Yeah. It's got some similarities to T. You can spot a few, but for the most part, it stands on its own.
Yeah.
So, either way, I knew this would never be a 2-hour show, as much as I lied to myself. There was no way that we were going to be able to condense this fight down to 2 hours between all of us. There's no way. But it has been an exciting conversation. Hopefully enlightening for anyone who didn't prog or is still progging and working on some of the later bits and wondering if their team is going about it the right way in certain parts. Okay. Well,
I thought you were ending. I was.
I'm getting there, but yeah, no, it's like it's just final thoughts was gonna be where that was going, but you know, that's yeah. Any final thoughts before we start signing off?
Just hope Square Enix keeps putting out amazing content like this. Because I don't like the rest of the game personally. I love the raiding in Final Fantasy, but the rest of the game, I don't play the game between patches. And it's something I love about our team. Is just no one here is forced to play the game between patches. We meet up a month before the patch comes up, or like a couple weeks, and we start raiding then. So as long as Square Enix keeps putting out fantastic raid stuff like this, I'll always be subbed, I guess, and hope it keeps going.
Same. Also, sorry for making your show take an hour longer.
Oh, we don't care. Well,
Yeah,
I don't know if Sly,
we're
he
fine.
normally doesn't. No,
I ain't got,
we
I ain't got
aim
shit
for
to
the
do.
two
I'm good.
every show, but we don't care.
But when we got like with shows like this, I go in knowing that it's gonna probably go 3. Our rating shows usually last a lot longer than our normal content type shows.
Aloha's
I can't help it.
Aloha's not pleased with it though, because his lunch is normally at 2, but I saw his bowl was still full. Not full, but had food in it, so I didn't refill it before the show. And now it's empty, so he is upset.
And now he's mad.
He is very mad, and he is trying to make a meal out of my fucking legs.
He's gonna show you who's boss.
Yeah, he's a big softy at the end of the day.
I can't help it. I have too much fun. I talk too much.
No, that's fine.
No,
It
that's
works out
okay.
perfect for the
That's
show.
fine.
We'd rather you
Yeah.
have fun talking instead of not have fun talking. Have
It's fun to talk about too.
It is. It really is. That's the thing. I'm not as fatigued as I may make it seem at times.
It's just different. and it's really nice.
This isn't the same conversation we had
With
that
DSR.
we did with DSR.
DSR,
Yeah,
I
it's not.
wanted like a mental health.
He wanted
life.
a support group. He wanted a support group. I mean, we're doing that for rating in general, but like, yeah, I don't feel like Top needs a support group. I mean,
It's going to
y'all
need
were
it
there
for people
a
who
while.
aren't done with it yet soon.
Yeah, but they will. So we'll probably end up still doing that.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
But hopefully everyone enjoyed the show. We're going to be wrapping up here. So thank you again to our sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. They don't have to support. They simply choose to. And we appreciate them for it. Thanks to our sponsors in that Steel Series and Advanced GG. We have discount codes for both of them. And I have a few other, assuming some people are still around in chat and post show. I got a couple other people to thank for a couple of things as well. No, we're not. Joel's not sponsoring. No, we do not have a Joel sponsor.
Joel.
No.
Wait,
But if
I'm
Joel
Joel.
wants to give me some
Joel?
money, then I could make it happen. So that's fine. So anyway, with that, I like how you have the tiny bit badge, the 1 bit.
I love watching people's streams and just spamming 1 bit all the time. It's my favorite.
Well, thank you both of you again for taking the time out. It took an extra hour of your time as well, and we very much appreciate it here on State of the Realm. So, Mugi, we'll let you and your banana go first. What do you got going on? What are you looking forward to? What's up for your future?
I mostly just play Lost Ark, so I'm just happy to be done with Final Fantasy. Go back to Lost Ark. And yeah, just like I said, I'm really looking forward to more content. I'm looking forward to the Savage. If it's as I thought PNS was really fun, other than the Phoenix mech. So hopefully P12S will be really good as well. And I like the Criterion stuff too, the 4-man Savage stuff. I think there's a lot of good stuff coming for Final Fantasy next few months. And I'm really looking forward to it.
One for Joel. God. Lost Ark. Did they release? I haven't been keeping up. What's her face? The 20-minute encounter. I can't remember. her name.
Broshaza? Yeah, Broshaza.
Okay, yeah, that was the one before Lost Ark came to the West. That was the one everyone kept saying you gotta watch this fight on YouTube. So I was like, I haven't kept up with when it was.
That just reminded me of something. You know how in Final Fantasy people are always like, "Oh, I was out of that. Like I wasn't in that AoE. Look where I died."
Oh God, Lost Ark, it's way worse.
Suki's version is always that would have worked in Lost Ark.
Like in Lost Ark, you're actually where you're standing because it's like
He says it like 3 times.
in Final Fantasy, your character's like 3 paces behind everyone else.
That would have worked in Lost Ark.
So like in Final Fantasy, you're stacked up in your screen, but then it's like no, you're not stacked up. Only you're not in the stack. You're too far in the server. But then Lost Ark, like yeah. So it was like a running meme and everything. It was like yeah, in Lost Ark, I would have been in that stack.
I don't know. I always felt like the Lost Ark hitboxes were a little bigger, and it made.
Oh, it's definitely bigger. Yeah, it's just
a
that when
little
you're in a
annoying.
stack in Lost Ark, you'll be in that stack.
Yeah,
You see yourself in the stack, you're in that stack.
Those fucking seagulls. I hated those fucking seagulls when I played. It's been a while. Anyway. Narr, what do you got going on? What are you looking forward to in the next few months? Waiting on this next raid tier.
I don't. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
We're lucky. We don't have to play Final Fantasy. I make sure our team takes a long break. So I don't think
like
anyone
playing this
particularly
game
wants to go
sometimes.
raid. Hey, Narr
Doesn't have
goes
to be
pug. I don't know
14.
how he does it.
This is your sign
no,
off,
it
so you
could
can
be
just say
14.
what you're doing
Yeah.
and what you got going
Oh, okay.
on. It's just
We can
No,
do
I
it for
don't
the
have
next 2
anything going
months.
on.
nothing. Watching
Nothing
other
at
people
all?
suffer. No Octopath. No alternative like WoW or Lost Ark. No.
You're gonna be in PF, right, Narr?
No, I think I'm just gonna hibernate.
Okay, that's fair.
That's fair. That's fair.
Can't fault them for that. All right. Well, thank you again, both of you, for being on and taking your time. Sly, what do you got going on?
Hi, you can find me at twitch.tv/Sly, aka Gray Fox. You can find me at Twitter at Sly the Fox. Wild Hearts
Yes.
coming soon. Yes. We'll definitely be on the Wild Hearts. I'll be watching people play Octopath. I'm excited for y'all, but I'm not like geeked like y'all are. But you know, the usual. Some good ass Gundam, of course. Always some good ass Gundam, and you know, stuff on 14 as content comes out. So, actually have a few community things planned for 14 as well. So I might be reaching out to y'all on Twitter. So keep on the lookout. Coming soon.
Cool.
Is that
Abs-
Sly, aka Gray Fox, with an A or an E?
A. Well, oh, I'm sorry. E. Excuse me.
You thought the A and AKA?
Yeah,
I was like,
I'm
yeah.
going to follow you right now. I had to know.
Well, thank you.
Everyone else should do that too.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Big Gundam fan.
Big Sly fan.
There you go.
Oh, stop it. And Habs, what are you doing with life?
Getting back into the rhythm of things on YouTube. I've got some pretty big stuff coming up in the next couple months. I'm going to talk to you about that probably in private sometime soon. But Wild Hearts is next week. Theatrhythm is next week. For
Rhythm.
those who don't know, I used to do DDR competitively, but I haven't touched a rhythm game in over a decade. So that's been a fun revisit. I've just been getting my rhythm game senses back, and that's been a great time. Octopath 2 demo's out. It's fantastic. I'm planning on doing my demo speed run so I can bring a good save file over. Probably try to clear through all the stories in like 20-30 minutes, and then spend the next 2.5 hours just figuring out like stealing stuff from people. Or apparently there's something in the demo where if you go into a dungeon before the 3-hour mark hits for the demo limit, they won't kick you out of the game or the dungeon until you leave it. So you can technically stay in a dungeon and level in the demo until you leave it and then carry that save over. So I might do that.
Whoa.
Might do some grade A cheddar cheese.
Some grade A cheddar cheese, baby. The Sea of Stars demo also, if you haven't played, was awesome.
Yeah, I was actually interested in that. I was looking at that too.
Yeah, it has shades of Chrono Trigger and Super Mario RPG, and some fantastic music and visuals to boot. So that was exciting. That's out in August, but the demo's out now. So it's only out on Switch, the demo for now, but they said the demo's coming to other platforms later. So
Yeah.
that's gonna be nice. Yeah, and then Deep Dungeon next month. I'm doing solo, so that'll be fun. Yeah, and the composer for Chrono Trigger did do some of the music, so that kind of helps out. Helps out big time. There's even a place, like there's a dungeon that's locked away. You're not allowed to go there in the demo, but if you stand outside of it, it pops up and says, you're not allowed in, but listen to Mitsuda's track that he made for this dungeon. So it's actually really nice. But either way, that's going to be it for us. So since you haven't been on the show, we do normally do a short post show, but because we had such a long show, I mean, very short post show, very likely. So, thanks again. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week for mental health and rating. We have one guest confirmed already, and that is Stall. I'm going to see about getting us another guest. So that way we can have a nice deep discussion about not hating yourself when you're doing 16-hour days.
Yes.
Or hating the people around you.
Yeah.
So Thanks, everyone, and we will see you next week. So y'all have a good one. Take care.
Take care. See you next week.